This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring programme that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. Boom, we're on.
Right.
And
Hello.
today's guest, Kev Healy. How are you, brother?
I'm very good, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Armed Response, nearly 20 years in the thick of it, shooting people. Also heard that you shoot dogs?
That can be part of the role, yes. We can do it's called destroying an animal, but...
Do you know what, mate? Humans, I think, nah, fuck them. But dogs, I think, oh no. And I get it, I understand it, but it'll be good to touch on these sort of topics. You were frontline, basically, going through the doors first, coming across some of the world's toughest criminals. Thankfully, we've not got a big gun culture here like America. Obviously, people have guns. If people have guns here, it's majority criminals. Yes, people have licenses, farmers, certain people who can carry guns, but thankfully, there's not many guns here, but there's still enough to cause harm. And like I say, you were frontline. You've also released a book. What's the book called for people to maybe watch, tune in, maybe go and buy the book to have a look?
All right, thank you for the plug. The book's called Watch and React, and it's about a 30-year career, but predominantly it's about the 18 years I served on SO19, which is the Metropolitan Police Armed Response Vehicles. And it's basically my sort of homage to... I'm in it, but it's about the people who basically had my back for 18 years or 30 years, the great people I work with, male and female, who day to day made coming to work just an absolute
buzz.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. I don't think people appreciate just the quality of the police officer in the UK. They really don't appreciate the good men and women who come to work. I think it's an incredibly honourable job. You wake up, you go to work, and you try and do good in very difficult circumstances. So the book was a thank you to them.
I think anyone in emergency services do amazing work, do God's work. And I always say this in podcasts, but where we're from in Glasgow, the police were always the enemy. But it's not until I've interviewed police to realise what these people actually go through, the bravery, the mindset of losing that. It's a very negative job, you know, and I think dark humour gets a lot of people through it, same as the SAS. The SAS, for me, are the best armed forces in the world. There's nobody beats the SAS. And there's a lot of people can walk about freely. And like I spoke earlier, I walk around London, I don't see trouble. I know it's there. I don't see violence. I don't see racism. I see good people just walking along, getting on with their day. I think social media now, you can put a clip out on X or Instagram, it'll get millions of views, and then automatically people think the world's a bad place. There's still badness goes on, but thankfully for men like yourself, special services help prevent it from not being as bad as what it is. But before we get into everything though, I always like to go back to the start with my guests.
Okay.
Get more of a bit of understanding about you, where you grew up and how it all began.
I grew up in West London. Mum and dad were both Irish immigrants who came over in the 60s. My dad went walkabout when I was about 10, leaving my mum to raise 5 kids, a little Irish lady called Eileen, who's just the reason we all succeeded, because she was so strong. We lost our house, as you do, when no one's paying, couldn't pay the bills, and we ended up in a council house and a very, very interesting estate. And it was tough. It was very tough. It was a massive culture shock, ending up in this very rough estate. I was a Boy Scout at the time. I was just living the dream, and within a couple of weeks, my brother and I sacked the Scouts. We thought we were not going to survive going to Boy Scouts. And my brother dragged me to a karate club, took up karate in 77. And that introduction to Shotokan karate just absolutely changed my life, because the knock-on effect was that I became obsessed with karate, just lived for it. Started to compete, got on the national squad, fought in the European Championships. Started to meet people, really interesting people with big lives. I started teaching at a club in London, a place called the Buddha Kwai, which had really interesting people training there. And the karate just opened my mind to a whole different world, because you can get suffocated on a council estate. You can get suffocated when you're poor, and we were poor. But I had my mum was nails, loving, tough Irish lady, holding down cleaning job. So we had food on the table. We never missed a day at school. We just were tough kids. We were resilient and with a sense of humor, because no matter how much shit comes your way, you've got to laugh about stuff. What else are you going to do? And I think I took that mindset, coupled with the martial arts, a toughness. I discovered I had a toughness, a mental toughness and a physical one. I learned I didn't have a glass jaw. I learned I could take a dig, and I learned how to give a dig. I learned the rules of sparring. Don't take the mick. Play the game. And you learn a lot of stuff when you do combat sports. I think it's essential to do combat sport. My son boxes. I'm very proud of him. I'm just among my girls. I've just got to mention you're amazing. But just like that whole world was tough and it was challenging. And then one day I was teaching karate, and someone said, "Kev, why don't you join the police? You are a natural. It's a shoo-in. You love the whole roll around kind of environment." I stuck an application in 91. I walked through the gates of Hendon. But I honestly think I succeeded because all of that stuff with my broken home stuff, poor, it just makes you tough. It makes you sort of survive, and makes you realise, and what doesn't kill you does make you stronger.
Yeah, it's cheesy as that is.
It is. But you know what? A lot of coppers I've worked with over the years, and maybe the book touched on this, people have reached out to me and said, like, my dad was this, and that happened. And they were great cops, because they had a sensitivity. They were nails, but they had stuff going on. They got it. It's a pleasure to be around people like that. Tough people, but they had a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes poor people come from a poor background, gives you just gives you something else.
Gives you an extra edge, an extra roughness, but there's only a very small percentage who go down the martial arts route or sort of combat sports. The rest come from the broken home. You'll tend to see it being a police officer. The majority of men in prison come from broken homes, and instead of, I believe martial arts is, I never really got into it until my late 20s, early 30s. And I went to the Grip House a couple of times, couple of sessions in Glasgow. And because I got humbled so easily, embarrassed because I realised I couldn't fight. And you get the encouragement from your kind of seniors, come back, just show up, come back. And after time, you start to realise, like you say, you're not made of glass. Because I was a scared boy. All my drink and drugs, and it was to put on a fake mask that I had confidence.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people should do combat sports. My nephew Carter, he's under 14s boxing champion. My daughter does Muay Thai. My son James does MMA. So it is important. I wish I got into it more younger. I think I would have had more dedication for life. It would have gave me a calm mindset.
Yeah.
Because when I was going into nightclubs or going into sticky situations, I used to always be fearful. But I would portray the mask of a clown as if I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was agitated, nervous, and it's not until you, like you say, do sparring, and people do try and take liberties. Some people, but once you get stronger, once you realise it's a game of chess, and once you realise that you can move, and the majority of people outside as well, you just need to learn how to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
Because being in a fight, you're tired after a fight. It's probably the most exhausting thing in the world, because it's the nerves, it's the movement. trying not to get hit, trying to hit. And the majority of people don't know how to throw a punch.
No.
And I'm no expert, by the way, but I've done enough sessions and I've done enough lessons, I've done enough sparring, I've had a couple of fights to realise that there's something special in it. It's scary. I still get scared sparring. I still get nervous. But after it's a sense of accomplishment.
Absolutely. Facing those fears.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got respect for anybody who walks onto a mat, gets into a ring, who an octagon, whatever, because you're putting it all on the line. You know, whether there's an audience or not, you've been tested against another individual. And I think you learn so much through violence, you know, control violence, whatever. You learn about yourself. You know, you gain respect from people, because even if they pummel you, but you keep getting up, you keep sort of slugging away, you gain some kind of belief in yourself. Like, I'm not someone who's going to fold. And I think the martial arts or box or whatever the martial art is, it doesn't really matter as long as it's tough and it has a good sort of code to it. I think they're absolutely fantastic. Best thing that happened to me was ever walking into a dojo.
Yeah.
I met some of the hardest people, some of the kindest people all rolled in. I learned that you could be an incredibly dangerous individual and also have a heart of gold.
Yeah.
It does, you know, you can balance those two. You don't have to be a thug 24 hours a day. You can be a thug in the dojo, thug in the whatever, and then you go home and you're great to your kids and you've got all that kind of madness out of you. Nothing to, what's the best thing is nothing to prove. The people who have nothing to prove, aren't they the best?
They're the calmest ones.
Yeah.
And the people who I used to drink with and go around with when we were in nightclubs and pubs, we were always the loudest because it was like trying to prove something that we weren't scared, but every one of us were broken. Every one of us were scared.
Yeah.
Even when I've done a couple of judo classes, and again, it's like you're humbled again. You feel as if you've not mastered boxing, but when you know how to throw a dig and you know how to kind of defend yourself, you kind of try and move on to something else and you just get totally humbled. You're talking men in their 60s and 70s who are just throwing you over their shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's humble pattern, man, and you think, I'm not coming back here. And you have to start again. But then I've got so much ego. The same as everybody. I think that's what makes us want to go back for more and kind of learn and grow. But it's something special in learning a craft, no matter what it is. And I think, like you say, it calms the mind. It's understanding that we're not all weak and it makes you stronger. You've got to go through the weakness and the pain and the dark clouds to realise I'm not weak. Yeah. And it takes so much time though, it takes so much effort.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's that thing when you walk into a dojo or whatever. Now, you know, I used to teach, I taught for years and people would come in, how long to be a black belt? How long to, like, just forget all that nonsense. Just turn up. The hardest thing you'll do is turn up twice a week. You know, don't think 5 years from now, I'll be amazed if you're in 6 weeks. Yeah. You know, I mean, I took it up in the 70s. There was no weight categories. There was no protective clothing. I mean, you a gum shield, and that was usually just if someone knocked your teeth out, it kept your teeth in one place. You know, you were fighting, and it was full on. You know, there was no sort of messing around. People were very serious. You know, if you did box, because a lot of the people who taught me were doormen. That their income was door work. So they were bringing a practical, you've got this Japanese martial art and it's beautiful thing, karate, right? It really is. But they were bringing a reality. Like, so we're punching thin air and then this one of your instructors would go, however, how about this? How about that? What about someone sticks a nut on you? What about someone sticks an elbow in or you get caught with a knee? And there was always an edge to it. I mean, I trained with a guy called Billy Higgins who's just got an MBE, I believe. He's 80 this weekend. And from Manchester, a world karate champion in '95. One of the most unbelievable men I've ever met. He walked into a dojo, it could be 50 people, 100 people, there'd be silence. His charisma, his aura. And that guy would push you to your absolute physical limit every time you trained. And because he inspired you so much, you would just push on. You would push on. I remember I got my nose broke someone said, like, do you want to go to the hospital? And I was like, nah. And he said, let's put it back. Right, you all right? I remember I got one of my teeth knocked out, and his first question was, did you go down? First question, did you go down? And I went, yeah, I took the knee, and he was like,
disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed. Stayed with me my whole life, that did. I was about 16. I thought, the only way I'm going down now is you have to knock me out. If you hit me and drop me, fair play, I'll get up. You hit me a back kick and solar plexus, of course I'm going to drop to the floor, but I'll get up. And those people had a huge impact. And take that mental attitude, take that grit. And I just walked into the Met. And suddenly you're on the street, single patrol, on your own, walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning, Notting Hill or wherever. You know, you're on your jack. So you better have your wits about you, and all that stuff transferred so easy. Transferable skills people talk about. Well, a fighting art. I mean, it makes me think anyone who joins the police should be doing some system where they can defend themselves, really defend themselves.
And that should be the first sort of protocol when you're doing some training. You should be learning MMA, boxing, self-defence. I look at the coppers now, and no disrespect to them, majority are all fucking fat. They're all kind of unhealthy. Because even if you're chasing someone, I've been chased a few times back in the day, and I remember a big guy, Muscles, and he was fit, but he used to just batter me, just throw me over his shoulder, hold me down. Okay, I've got respect for you because you're winning here. I don't think the majority know how, because there's no point in chasing someone, catching them, and then not know what to do.
Well, exactly.
Because the majority of people run, they've either got a blade, they've either got a gun, or they're willing to do what they can to get away. So it can be scary. Do you think you would have done what you done with the martial arts if your dad was still around?
No, I don't. I don't think I'd ever enjoy it. Things happen for a reason. My dad walked out, and my mum suddenly found us in a very difficult position. There was the 60s, it was early 70s, sorry. And, there wasn't a lot of welfare state running to help my mum. She was on a jack. We got a council house. But suddenly, living in a very rough area, very hostile area. And my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, he's visionary, right? And he thought, right, you and we need to start doing something. And he got me into karate. If we hadn't lost the house, I'd have gone to Boy Scouts, and I'd have done this, and I'd probably never tapped into a side of me that was there. I just didn't know it was there.
Were you bullied?
At school, I think it was the 70s. I said this in the book. I think everyone was bullied in the 70s. It was like, if you're poor, right, you're going to school in rubbish clothes and second-hand shoes. There's some teachers who might have a bit of sympathy, but ultimately, you're just one of those kids who falls through the crack. You're not cool. You've got nothing going on. And so, because there was lots of bullying in the 70s. A Catholic school was a tough environment, but also the estate. I mean, the estate, no offence, but our next door neighbour, my best mate, turned out a lad from Marco who came from Scotland, came from Glasgow, and they'd moved out. His dad was moving down to run a shop. And Marco was great. We took up karate, became friends for life. But his brother was a skinhead, and he hated, remember the 70s, skinheads, he hated leaving Scotland, and he hated England more than anyone has ever hated England in their life. And I remember he just literally saw me. I was the embodiment of England. And that bloke made my life a hell, right? Living hell. If he saw me in his Dr. Martens, cherry red Dr. Martens, rolled up jeans, heads like shaved to the scalp, to the bone, I'd be like, here we go. And Marco could never stop him. But do you know what? I mean, I can say we never became friends, but do you know what? I learned about what it feels like to have adrenaline go through your body and be switched on and be aware of your surroundings, because you did not want this guy catching you unawares. Yeah. So it was a bit like Kato in the old Clouseau films. I never knew when he was going to attack me. So it was tough. But if we hadn't lost what we'd lost, I'd never have stepped a foot in the dojo. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's mad. That's why I asked the question. That interviewed a great man, Jeff Thompson.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think he's an 8 for 9 man. He was abused as a kid. He trained himself to be a killer. He wanted to kill. He wanted to be a bad man. He became the bouncer and done a lot of damage. But then something kind of switched in him. I think he's seen his abuser. He called it the parasite. He spoke about it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of what he never spoke about what happened to him as a kid by his instructor. And I think he met him in a cafe, and he says because he always had that thought of killing him, but when he seen him, he froze. Bear in mind, he's a trained killer at this time. He's unbelievable at what he does, and he froze. He realised that he had his power, so he wanted his power back. So he went up and approached him and asked him. And he realised how much a weak coward he was, never done anything. And from that day, took his power back. And then he's just went on and done unbelievable things. Like, it's unbelievable. What a man he is.
Yeah, I know Jeff Thompson. Yeah. I mean, I've followed his career. He was around, we were around in the same era. When he wrote some great books. He watched it at the Pavement Arena, which was like one of the first books I can remember where people actually talked about the street being fighting on the street is a world different to fighting in a dojo. Because up until then, I think a lot of people thought, it just transfer, what you did in the dojo, but it doesn't. People fight dirty, surprise attack, weapons. Simple things can catch you out. This is what I found in the police. Like you're struggling with somebody, a curb. Suddenly, one of you stumbles on that curb, or use it to your advantage. If they're getting on top, pushing them back, and they topple over, using the curb to your advantage, using vehicles for cover. It suddenly produces a knife. Get a car between you. All this practical application that doesn't occur to people standing in a white karate suit punching thin air. But it does occur some. And Jeff Thompson used to have a session, I think it was once a month or whatever, and it was a reality pressure testing, he called it, where they'd go in the dojo and it was full on. And it was just people would turn up and it was pretty much no holds barred. And they found out what worked. Because, it's like in the police, you can learn all this, this hold and that hold. That's great when they're being passive. Try doing it on a 14-stone drunk on a Friday night who's not even fighting, who just doesn't want to play the game. A lot of stuff doesn't work. So, doing any kind of, having any kind of background in understanding how the body works. And that usually means you've got to hurt them a bit first, doesn't it? But inflict a little bit of pain or stun them or something. Do something so they then can comply. So you get a little bit of control over them. But these are the things a lot of people don't understand. But if you do any kind of fighting system, a realistic fighting system, then you start grasping how the body works, the mechanics of it. Jeff Thompson was good.
Yeah, it gives you the upper hand.
It does.
But like you say, in a street fight, you don't know who's around you. You don't know. It's hard to understand your surroundings, but to have that extra edge, it's important. But I've seen boxers, I've seen UFC fighters get knocked out by just average men, bouncers. Everybody's got a fighting chance with one punch. Everybody's got that crazy. Not everybody, but some people have got that crazy power where they don't even do training. But
you introduce drugs, alcohol, some people, the wrong night, the wrong person on the wrong night. Somebody, hysteria, they're fighting for their life, whatever their thing is. But anybody can be a handful. I mean, often you'll see on TikTok, all these geniuses on TikTok will take a little snapshot of a job and they'll see like 7 or 8 coppers struggling with someone on the ground. And there's always that voice, took 8 of them. That's because 8 coppers are not battering that guy. They don't want to batter that guy. But one takes a leg, one takes the other leg, one gets an arm, the other arm, one's controlling the head so they can't bite. There's plenty of coppers who can turn up and could just bang people out if they, but that's not the job, is it? Coppers turn up and they're trying to use reasonable force. So it might take 6 or 7 people to put that idiot in a van safely. So when he gets transported to custody, he's not black and blue. So coppers are trying to do it all the right way with everyone holding the camera. It's incredibly difficult. And all the time that person's trying to bite you, spit at you, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So of course it takes numbers. But like I say, the more training you have, I mean, even like when I joined at Hendon in 91, we did boxing, wrestling, bit of judo, God knows how many gym sessions and all sorts of stuff. You left there fit as you could possibly be. And you had some understanding. They even made everyone get in the ring and box. You had to get in the ring and box. And those days are long gone. They are long gone. But how can you be a police officer and not really think that one day someone is going to chin you? Someone's going to catch you. I don't care where it is. It might be domestic, doing a vehicle stop and you get a cheeky dig. It's going to happen. And you're naive. You're foolish if you don't have some sort of mental in your mind preparation. Right, it's coming. So what am I going to do about that? So do some training. Think about it. I used to think about scenarios all the time, debrief scenarios where something had gone wrong. Sometimes even if it went really well, what could I have done better on that call? What was my positioning? How did he, just be on top of things, be an expert, be good. So when you do turn up, you're in charge, not them. But that was just my mindset.
How long did it take to get a black belt? 5 years?
It took me just over, about 3.5.
That's fast.
It was, but like I say, I had something. This guy, Billy Higgins, was an incredible instructor.
You there every day then?
I was training probably I got onto an England squad, an all-stars England squad run by a guy called Tiki Donovan, who's quite famous in the martial arts, and Billy Higgins. They ran an all-stars squad. And I got on that brown belt and really gave me an insight into how much I love competition. And that just egged me up. That getting there brown, but I was just training probably 4 or 5 times a week. But on top of that, I'd be running. I was running. I'd run everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I'd run Christmas Day. I had that. I think I read years later that Mike Tyson had this thing. Christmas Day he'd run. He'd run. Everyone else is running at 4. He'd run at 3. Anything to give you the edge. So I'm not a big guy, so there's no weight category. So I thought, right, well, give me an edge. I'll be fitter than everyone in the room. I'll be the guy training Christmas Day. And if you put that stuff in the back of your head, when it come the day of the races, when you walk on the mat and you're facing an absolute monster, you're thinking, I bet he hasn't trained as hard as me. I bet he hasn't put the hours in. And that gives you something sort of to cling to, and it all comes on top. But I was training all the time, 3.5 years. But like I say, I had some very inspiring people around me that pushed me on. Yeah, it's very lucky.
3.5 years is great, man. You're not average about between 4 and 6 years now.
Well, probably about 4 years in Shotokan, but now it's been years since I've really been involved in the system. But yeah, I literally lived it. I mean, I was doing my A levels, didn't do a thing. I literally went to school and they had a really good. I go in the gym, do sprints, go on I never went to a lesson. So surprisingly, when I got my results for my A levels, they weren't as exciting. They didn't inspire my mother. But I just used every opportunity to train. I saw myself as this urban samurai. I read everything on Japan I could. I read everything on the sort of the martial mindset about what takes you to the next level, what makes you really live it. Because I really bought into it. People were calling me up saying, would you come and teach at our club? Would you come and do this? Would you come and do that? And suddenly I'm at the front of a class from a council house kid who hasn't got a lot. I mean, I started teaching at the Buddha Choir, which is the oldest established martial arts club in Europe outside of Japan. 1890, it was early 1900 it was set up. And I eventually became the chief instructor there. And this is a council house kid. And I'd walk into the dojo and there'd be guards, officers, Lloyd's underwriters, because it's in Chelsea, so it's like pretty far. And these guys, wonderful people, army officers, bomb disposal expert work, incredible actors, all sorts of people. And there's me at the front telling them what to do, shouting, barking their commands, sparring with them all. And I thought, how are these people respecting me? And they respected me because I had something I wanted. Something they wanted. I had something, a spark, something that they thought I'd buying into, and they loved my style of teaching. And then when I joined the police, I just adapted some of my police stuff into my karate teaching, saying, look, even if you're not that good at karate, and it kicks off, then be the fittest person and just run away. If you're so fit, you'll get away. So have something. And I just loved teaching. I loved trying to pass on good advice, good technique, and see people develop. Build up their confidence, especially kids. It's when you see kids come in who are really lacking in confidence. I'd see myself 20, 30 years before, that just like really like lost, no sort of center. And you suddenly they start getting good at something.
What did you learn about the samurais? I love all those stories. I've read a few books and their background and how they kind of go through their day-to-day life, and everything they do is just about combat. It's about the art of war. It's just they're so precise in their craft.
Well, for me, I'll tell you what I bought into. It's like the whole yin and yang, right? That's probably Chinese, but the whole thing was for me was that you can be a warrior, you can fight and do all that stuff, but there should be a soft side to you. So the Japanese, they have the tea ceremony, which is this ritual of making tea. The samurai used to write poetry. So I'm thinking, hold on, these are these trained killers, doing their stuff. But also they had a softer side. And then like the whole thing about like this mental stuff, like Zanshin was his Japanese thing, which anyone who does martial arts is probably going to hate me now for this description. But it's a state of like controlled awareness. You're alert, but you're calm. You're not like, so that translates to karate. From karate into going on the street, you go to the front door, you've had a massive domestic, it's going to kick off. Door goes in and some lump staring at you. You're calm, you're alert, you're ready to go, but you're not pumped with adrenaline. You're in control. You've been here before. You're not going to get killed, right? Because you've got good mates with you. We're going to win. We're going to nick this person. But that Zanshin, that ability of being in control, and that really was important in firearms. Nothing. I was always that guy that said, Kevin's unflappable. Doesn't matter what we turn up at, how bad it is, people look at me and go, look at Kev, he's unflappable. Nothing will make my heart rate. Now, sometimes, obviously, I was faking it. Sometimes we calls and you're thinking, fuck. But keeping it in control. And that whole Japanese thing. And I also love the fact, there's me in a council house and it was grim. Reading books, every magazine on Japan, everything about, like even there's a Japanese judo guy who I read about, and they said when he was at the Olympics, before he left to fight, he in the Olympic Stadium, he tidied his room, like it was pristine, everything was folded, because he goes, and his attitude was, because I could die, I will fight to the death on that mat, and I will leave nothing behind that people have to pick up for me or clean up. And I thought, my God, I love that attitude. He's thinking about other people, the cleaners. He's thinking about, if something bad happened to him. So he's totally prepped, completely in control of his private life, because he knows I'm going to that stadium and I will fight to the death to win. And that's how much I'm committed. And I just thought, try to keep, that's an amazing mindset. So can you imagine, people did not get me. At home, I was so stowed away. My uniform, my kit, my gi, everything. I learned to iron. I learned to iron everything. My mum couldn't believe how good I got at ironing. I started decorating the house. My mum, the driveway, I laid a concrete driveway at the front of the house. It's just like, I'm going to be so in control. I can't change the rest of the world. I can't make it a fairer place, but I can control my world. And I'm going to make my mum's life better. I'm going to try and make my brother and sisters, try to be a good brother and brother. And so that Japanese mindset, though, like I say, I'm probably not explaining it very well, but it had a deep impact on me. And also the senior karate people, like I remember once I was in a cafe in Crystal Palace, and this Billy Higgins and I were having, with some other people were having lunch, and this woman came in. She was absolutely broke, just like clearly living on the street, and she was looking at the menu, and he just got up, went over, and I saw him handed a couple of notes. 5 years ago, so a couple of pound notes, I don't know. And he just paid for a meal, never said a word, just came back, sat down, and I noticed it. I thought, that's the code. Looking after other people, hard man, very brilliant martial artist, but came from a really rough background up in Manchester. He'd had some hard times, and he still had that kindness. This was a bloke who'd walk in the dojo, and he scared the shit out of him. Yeah. But he could see someone who was down on their luck, and he could get up. No drama, not sort of virtue signalling, just a kind act. And I thought, I'll be like that.
Yeah, the samurais were very big on honour.
Yeah.
Even if they died at battle, it was an honour for them.
Absolutely.
They believed that.
Yeah, and I think that...
Do you think that's what gave them no fear?
Well, I think people always have fear, but, but I do think in Japanese society, that's huge. Honour, your place in the hierarchy. I don't know if it's still today, but the first Japanese karate instructors I met, they were formidable men, really formidable. And their presence, their aura, how they carried themselves was very impressive. And you could see like they had this stoicism. They had like a real fire in them. So they taught brilliantly, but there was it was inspiring to be around them. And if you're around inspiring people, yeah, it rubs off.
Yeah,
of course it does.
Definitely.
You want to be around unbelievable role models.
Like you say, with reading those books, it's made you a better individual. It's made you cleaner because your aura and your cleanliness is next to holiness.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so important. Like if I go into a car or somebody's house, you can tell straight away how they live because it's a big part of how their mind is.
Absolutely.
Clutter in the house is clutter in the mind. So you can feel, like sometimes you get, like this has got great energy, it's got good vibes yourself, you've got a good presence. Interviews, sometimes I can be drained, I'll feel good after this interview, but you can tell a big part of someone is how they present themselves, is how their house is, or how dirty their car is. It might sound weird for people, but it's a big indicators on who that individual is and how they see the world.
I completely agree. And my wife will probably hear this and burst out laughing because I use my car to transport all the trees I chop down where we live. I chop down a lot of stuff for the wood burners, and our car sometimes resembles a tip, right? But in my defense, I have to do it, Kerry. But I do agree. How you live away from the action, how you live at home, how you behave around people, Don't have this facade. Like, I think there's an expression the Irish have is street angel, house devil. On the street, around people, you're lovely, right? Well, and then at home, you're a monster. Well, I thought, what you see with me is the person at home is the same person in uniform. So when I deal with people, I was always unbelievably fair. I don't care how bad they were. It's the same things they're going to do stuff to my mum, do stuff to my girls. I'd be like, okay. I just kept my shit together, kept my mouth shut and did my job. I thought, I'm not letting you get a rise out of me. I'm not letting you upset me because I'm above all that. I'm doing my job. I'm highly trained. I love what I do. And you're not going to break me with your horrible crap that you spout. And I think if you present yourself in a really professional manner, that rubs off on your colleagues. Not that they needed to rub. I work with great people, but on your kids, inspire you. You want your kids to lead good life. I mean, isn't that the ultimate thing with your kids? You want them to have a better life than you.
Yeah.
Well, I want my kids, and I hope and I think they're having a better life than me. Or start off, they had a better start in life. They're educated. They've all got a good heart. I married a fantastic woman, Kerry, who's got great kids. Again, she just had, you want to be around good people who do good things and really care about other people. And I learned that bizarrely in the dojo, which is so strange. And about just, thinking there's more. Do you know what? I learned that you're not the most important person in the world. Your family, collective, being part of something is more important. And if you're not, selfishness is a really hard thing to work with. If you work with people who are very selfish, it's never going to be a good environment. But if you work with people who buy in to something in the dojo, in the police, like my team on 19, there was such a camaraderie. I'd walk on parade at say 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd look at those faces looking back at me, and they're smiling, they're motivated, they're energetic, and they've all got stuff going on, problems with a wife, problems with the kids, had a shocker at work yesterday, they're going to get a bollocking. But you're looking at people who are professional and really motivated and want to do a good job. And that just rubs off on you. So I had it in the dojo, I had it in the police, and all through my police career, and anyone watching this who's anti-police, you do not know how lucky you are. The police officers in this country, unarmed. When I joined, we had no body armor, we had no batons, no CS, no taser. You went to work, you wore a white shirt, epaulets, clip-on tie, flares, and a pair of Dr. Martin boots, right? And you walk the streets and you beat duty helmet, and you just learn to deal with the public. You learn to use the power of communication. Talk to people, be reasonable, negotiate, right? But also have in your back pocket the ability to deal with stuff, and I just love that, But I think, you've got to be a positive person. If you're going to be a copper, you've got to bring positivity to it. And you are going to see bad shit. You're going to see really bad things. But if you've got a sense of humor, if you've got the ability to think, today will be, today was bad, tomorrow will be better. Keep getting up, keep going forward. And these are all cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. It's a tough job being a copper. Maybe, I don't know if it's tougher today than it was then, but I'll tell you what, in 91, when I joined, you really did have to have your wits about you because you didn't have a lot of backup. You were single patrolling. You had very little protective equipment. So you really learn how to deal with people, how to talk to people.
Did you have radios then?
We had radios.
When did they come in? It must have been the 80s then.
Oh no, the radios came probably in the 60s, I guess.
That early?
Yeah, but let's say there's us moaning about what we had. Yeah. Imagine coppers in the 40s or whatever. The only radio was in the area car, so the car had a transmitter. But I don't know what generation.
Yeah, so you never had a.
Oh no, we had radios, personal radios. So when I was walking around in 91, I had a personal radio. But there was a code of honor, right? You say you walk into some really bad stuff. You don't start screaming down the radio. You want to be one of a cool head. See, over the years, if I said over the radio, anyone near my location, that was my way of saying, can someone get here on the hour up? Because you don't want to transmit to the person who's giving you whatever that you're flapping, or you don't want to give them, you're worried. So you'd be saying, get your radio, say, anyone near Goulburn Road? And they go, yeah, Kev, 2 minutes out. Go, can you just join us? Be cool. Have a little bit of panache about you. Have a bit of, I ain't flapping. I ain't going away. Because that's another thing about the police. You join the job, you put that uniform on, you ain't running away. you turn up and you have to deal, right? So, like I say, I'll tell you one of the best compliments I ever had, and this is a great story. I used to teach karate, and there was a guy called Caesar Andrews who was a Rastafarian, really into the whole Rasta thing. He was a black belt at karate, and I walked into where was it? Cold Harbour. Well, it was somewhere. No, it wasn't. It was somewhere in Notting Hill. And Culver Square. And I walked into Culver Square, and there was like 3 or 4 Rastafarians kicking off, and there were some big guys, and they're having a bust up about something. And I thought, right, oh dear, this is going to go a bit bent. And I walked in, and these Rastas are looking at me, and they kind of turned on me, white police officer, started telling me, I said, guys, whoa. And with that, Caesar Andrews appears from my karate buddy. And he goes, whoa, leave him alone, leave him alone. And I looked at, hey, Caesar, and he's like, boom, and he's like, do you know what, Kev? He goes, and they're all laughing, go, you know this guy? He goes, he fights like a black man. Now, I'll never forget Caesar Andrews saying that. And they all burst out laughing, right? And I was laughing, and it completely brought the whole thing down, and we were all cool. And after that, when we saw each other, it was like thumbs, and we were cool. But you never know where those old contacts might suddenly step up and save your bacon, But yeah, the ability just to keep a smile on your face, it's important.
How long was the training to get into the police? You must have coasted that then, being fit.
In 91, it was 20 weeks at Hendon. And it was intense. It was 20 solid weeks of, if you weren't in the gym doing some sort of physical exercise, or in the swimming pool, you're in class learning the law, and you were learning the law inside out. There was no you learned the definition for each offence. There was tests on a Friday, there was a test every 2 weeks. Then once a month, you had a massive exam. And you had to pass those exams. If you dip those exams, the worst thing that could happen to you is being back class, where you'd go back 5 weeks and you join a new class, lose all your mates, and you'd also, everyone would be looking at you like you're some kind of loser because you've been back classed. So the pressure was on, but I must admit, I just flew through Hendon. Now, I wasn't academic, but I wanted it so bad. I love the fizz. I mean, imagine you like physical exercise and you're training every day, right? And it's such a laugh because I was fit. So I was knocking out 1.5 miles in under 9 minutes, say. I could do push-ups till the cows goes home, because in karate, there's nothing they love more than doing push-ups and sit-ups. So all that stuff was a piece of cake. Probably the only thing I couldn't do was swim. And to this day, I still couldn't swim from here to the door. So swimming was a bit of a problem. But in the exams, I wanted it. I studied. And I still had a great time. I was still in the bar every night, in the Peel bar, making friends and sort of telling war stories. And I loved Hendon. And it prepped me brilliantly for arriving on the street.
How many laws are there?
Oh, God knows.
Thousands.
There's so much that even
So what, do you get mock tests before it? Like, how does it work? If there's so many laws, surely you can't remember.
No. But there's a syllabus, and you'll learn about theft, the big ones: theft, burglary, robbery, sexual assaults, and then vehicle stuff. You learn about vehicle, drink drive, vehicle kind of offences, and then you're tested each month or each week, whatever, on each individual part of the syllabus. But at the end, it was a big throw everything in the mix exam. So you might have a question on a sexual assault, then a question on a theft, a question on a robbery, question on a vehicle thing.
Multiple choice?
I think they were actually, multiple guess. And but we got through it. But it was really challenging. It was tough. But you had the instructors. I mean, that was another thing, like karate or whatever. The instructors really wanted to be there. They really wanted to help you. So you sit in class, and I had one instructor who was a Scottish guy, dog handler, and he was there because he had so many complaints. He had to go off the streets. So they'd send him training. And at the end of every lesson, we'd sit in class, and he'd go, right, that's the book learning done. Now I'm going to talk to you about a scenario, something that happened to me. And he wouldn't be swinging the lamp, but he'd just talk about something. So what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? And he'd talk us through a scenario. And he basically said, anything can happen. If it can go wrong, it will. Do not expect the unexpected. No 2 days are the same. And so he prepped us, most of us, I think, mentally for when we leave Hendon, which is this incredible environment. We're out in the real world, and we're going to be on the street in uniform. And remember, you're a police officer. And sometimes you have to think of that. Look, you're like, that's me. I'm a police officer. And people don't care if you've had 1 day in the job or 20, if they're in danger or they need help, they're going to run up to you and say, officer, and you better have it, all your shit screwed sort of tied down. So law, you learn about law, you learn about just so much stuff. And then for the next 2 years, you're a probationer. There was every few weeks you went back for more training, adding more to your knowledge base. So you're learning about more offences. And so by the end of 2 years in your probation, you really have learned a amount of information. But obviously you're going out every day and applying it. You're nicking someone for burglary, you're nicking someone for theft or TDA or whatever it is, drink drive. And you're applying the practical application of the law. And that's the thing, another thing about the law. The law's amazing, right? The people who write the laws in the UK, whatever, right? These are bright people, right? They're paid to sit down, and it's lovely and it's nuanced and it's really, mens rea, the voicing thing in mind and all this stuff, and it's great. But the practical application of law, by police officers, well, do you know what? That's the sharp end of the spear. That's the point of the spear, because you have law, you have the caution, you have all these things. But when you're rolling around at 2 o'clock in the morning in the street with someone who's trying to knock your teeth out, trying to remember, your definitions, the reality, to apply the law, you've got to have also a bit of force behind it, because bad people, by definition, they don't want to play by the rules, do they? They're not going to conform. And so your knowledge of law is great, and those laws have to be applied. But to apply that law, you certainly need a bit of spine and a bit of muscle and a bit of something in you, because there are people who will not play the game. And that's what I thought. I thought the law's beautiful, democracy. We're an amazing democracy in the UK. And it's a wonderful thing, freedom of speech, the right to sort of whole sort of gamut of things, but the application of the law does require the use of force, and police officers have a thing called such force as is reasonable in the circumstances, and it's just lovely. It's reasonable in the circumstances, but a week later, 3 o'clock or whenever you get in a bundle and force is used, or maybe someone gets hurt, at the time in that moment that was necessary, but 6 months later at court and he finds out the guy's got this broken or that happened, and everyone's like looking at you going, well, was that necessary? You go, you had to be there. You got to be there. You got to understand. And that's why I think there's a disconnect between maybe senior officers. There's a disconnect with society that you don't understand. To apply the law, you need brave people who've got the guts to do it in the first place. And it's going to get messy, because not everyone goes, it's a fair cop gov, and jumps in the back of a van.
It's the same as the Lorne Castle stuff. I've got his back. I interviewed Lorne a couple of months ago now, and he jumped out his van. No excessive force. People say it was. The kid had no injuries. This was a 15-year-old kid who assaulted an old man, causing fights at McDonald's, carrying a lockback with a fucking Stanley blade on it. Yes, he never knew he had a knife, but he was a martial arts expert. He could have destroyed that kid in a heartbeat. They said he had his hands around his throat, which he did, and it was on his chest. He was resisting arrest. It took 4 people to get him. Eventually resisting arrest. For me, we need coppers like that. For me, that's the heartbeat of the police force. People who got the balls to jump out and take risks. Because that kid's hand slipped, and we know if there's a hand, it can do anything. It could have slit his throat, slit his artery. He could have died. But with that, unless you've actually lived it firsthand, you shouldn't be judging to make those split decision calls. A kid who's wanted, who's on the run for beating an old man, he jumped out the van, he resisted arrest. He says normally they try and put them up against the wall so they can't really move. That's normal protocol. But he never, and then obviously lost his job. Yes, he said some swear words, but there's got to be some element of respect as well. That the police demand respect, and so they should. So yes, he said a couple of swear words. It's not enough to get sacked, in my opinion. But for me, he's in the right. I don't see anything wrong in what he did. I would rather him on the street than the kid at 15. So what does it take for the kid at 15 to kill someone? For then people to stand up and go, yeah, the police should have done more. No matter what, he wouldn't have won. He disarmed the kid, resisted arrest. The kid never even put in a complaint. There was no injuries. Job done for me. And it's just went kind of worldwide news, lost his job. And it's just, we're living in a very softened generation,
Well, do you know, first off, is it proportionate he loses his job? He was a cracking copper. I think it was Dorset. He's got loads of commendations. He clearly is a working copper. He goes out and he's stopping bad people, which we all want, surely.
Yep.
Right? So he's doing his job, and he swore. I mean, for the life of me, I can't believe you lose your job for swearing. And the very fact that people justify it is just ridiculous. Get him in an office, square him away, have a word with him. Give him a written warning if that's where you. But even I don't think that's justified. What's wrong with swearing? If you in Trojan in firearms, the use of verbal domination, and that means swearing, is an absolute number one tool in our armory. So you jump out and you are letting them know that firearms officers are pointing guns at them, and you're showing me your fucking hands. You are dominating them unbelievably aggressively, right? Anyone watching be thinking, oh my God. But we're trying to make sure that guy or girl, whatever, is not going to go for a gun. It's not going to go for a weapon. So we completely shock and awe. They're completely scrambled. So then we can control them. Then we can extract them. They get cuffed. No one gets shot. Boom. Right? But so of course, what's wrong with swearing? And I've watched it. It's not hysterical. He hasn't lost the plot. He's having a fight with a guy, and there's some language. But he should never be sacked for that. And any working police officer, any hands in pockets, stopping bad people copper, watching that will be thinking, you got to be kidding me. That could be me. Imagine you're on the sofa there with your wife and kids and your mortgage and whatever else debt you got and your credit cards, and you're thinking, and bearing in mind, let's think of it's a tough job and the pay's just a joke for what we do. And you're like, that's me done. I'm going to go to work. I'm trying to, report a few crimes. Keep my nose clean. Keep out of any kind of conflict. Do you want a generation of coppers who do not want to get involved in stuff? Of course you don't. You want coppers who go out and stop bad people. And invariably, but like I'm going back to, if you want to sort of arrest these people, then invariably, if they kick off, there's going to be force. In the perfect world, you go, stand still, they stand still. Show me your hands, they show your hands. You go, you're under arrest, and they go, boom. But it isn't like that.
Do you think that's damaging towards coppers when they see that, and then they probably take a step back thinking, I can't afford to lose my livelihood? So they ended up, I wouldn't say they let people off, but they end up using less force, less action, because they don't want to take the risk in this woke society.
Well, they couldn't they? And you never ever want to go into a scenario, into a job, go to do an incident, and have in the back of your mind some little voice going, oh, but what if? If you've got that voice, you're in the wrong place. You've got to be going in there thinking, I'm with good people, I trust, they trust me, we're going to go and deal with this person, we're going to do our duty. If you start hearing little voices thinking, oh, but what about, you're in trouble. And unfortunately, what happened to that officer down in Dorset, I think, it was shocking, because I've watched it and I spoke to colleagues retired and still serving, and they're like, what's the world coming to? What do you want then? What do you really want? I would sometimes feel the public, maybe senior officers would be happier if one of us got a good hide. It'd be better for the optics. Copper's got a good hide in. It's better than, somebody gets roughed up. And it's not pretty. And that's my point I was making earlier. Dealing with violent people is not pretty. It's a bundle. It's a bun fight. And it's not like the movies. I mean, it's not like watching SWAT on whatever. You go in, cuff, everything's slick. One in the. It's not like that. People. Anybody, if they choose to be, can be a handful, right? And coppers are doing their best. And like you say, you're in the heat of the moment. You're human. What about the human factor? What has he dealt with? What 5, 10, 15 other calls has he dealt with that day? Is he in for night duty and he's had 2 hours sleep because he was late off dealing with a prisoner? Let's have some sort of context to it. Let's start trying to understand. And you know what? I saw on Nick Ferrari, they had some senior officer sort of nationally deals with complaints, and he was just talking waffle, just political waffle, and he's probably thinking of his next rank and what he's going to go and do about, well, it was investigated. Have some spine, mate. Have some spine and say, well, actually, it didn't, he got either come out and say that officer needed sacking because he was blah, 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 or back him. Sack him or back him, right? And you see in America all the time, really good sort of these sort of officers standing up. One of the officers maybe shot someone or been in an incident. Go, my officer did this. I support him. I've got his back. He's protecting the public. And you see the public are like, yeah, brilliant. That's what we want. We want people who are going to go out and protect us, right? Do you really want a load of police officers just riding around in cars? Like, hear no evil, see no evil. Oh, God, that looks a bit of trouble. Ignore that. Ignore that. You don't. You want coppers who see something and get out and deal.
But it makes it easier for criminals knowing that we live in a woke society and coppers aren't going to do anything anymore.
Well, fortunately, I think there's still thousands and thousands of coppers who go to work every day and do it. And I know I was like, sometimes my mindset was like, sod the consequences. I'm doing my duty. And if you don't like the way that takes us, well, then I'll deal with that as well.
What was your first arrest?
Cool, my first ever. I was walking down Portobello Road on a Saturday night, and a load of guys came out of a pub. I was on my own. It's the summer, and I've got my Beat Chewy helmet on, and I'm just like, and they're all pissed. And they came over and they just started on me. There was no warning. They just like, one went and knocked my hat off, which is an obvious target, and one sort of threw a kick, and I was like, and it's just off.
You're joking.
Yeah, and it was just off, and it was very unlikely that it was the nice end of Portobello Road, the sort of the south end, and within about, and it's just the gods, saved me. This van was driving, the station van was going past with a couple of very, very good coppers on board, and they pulled up, they put it on the radio, another car, and next thing, half of Notting Hill arrived in Portobello Road. They all got nicked. And it was good because it was like, everyone was like coming up, nice one, Healy, because they all got a bit of they got an arrest out of it. We all went in, they all got booked in. I had my first arrest for assault on bar and public order offences. And then we all went to the canteen, we were all drinking tea, and people are going, so who are you again? Because I was new on the team, right? They go, your name's Healy, is it, Kevin? And then you started to learn about people. He's the area car driver, this is that. And you started to build some sort of camaraderie, and they're saying, oh, he's a good lad. He's new, but he'll learn. He's motivated. And then sure enough, they go, right, tea's over, get out. And I was back out walking again. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And so if you are joining the police, and my God, there's some negativity about joining, it can be the best job in the world. And you will make friends for life, because the stuff you deal with, the things you see, the impact on you is so great. It just changes your life, and it did for me. It really did. I've got friends now who I would do a lot for, and they know where they are, right? And those friendships, and I'm sure you get in the military, maybe in other professions, but I only know about the police. Yeah. But boy, oh boy, I've met some unbelievable people, and I've talked about in the book. Like, I'm going to things, and I'm surrounded by people who are just so switched on, so sound. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I was driving around, again, early in my service. I'm driving around Shepherd's Bush. It's like, and there was a nightclub in those days on Shepherd's Bush, really leery nightclub. And I was with a guy called Magic, who'll hate me even talking about him. Could be, he's a sound bloke. And I was a bit of a hero of mine. And we just saw something kicking off outside a nightclub, and it just screeched up. It wasn't even our ground, Shepherd's Bush. We jump out, and there's this massive guy with loads of blonde hair. It turns out he's South African. And he's laying it to people. And we ran towards him. And next thing, I didn't know it, but he's got some sort of CS spray from South Africa. So God knows what was in it, right? It's put me in my eyes and in Paul's Magic. And next thing, we're fighting with, and he had a really big guy, but long blonde hair. And I remember getting hold of his hair. Now, this wouldn't have looked pretty. But I couldn't see a thing. And also in those days, no one knew about these gases and sprays. I thought, all I know is I can't see. I could be blind. So I've got all his hair, and I'm dragging him down. I can't see what my colleague's doing. Next thing, he's on the floor, and we're having a right old tear up. And then I can hear sirens, people turn up, and they say, right, off to hospital. And we got shipped to hospital, and no one knew what to do with us, because no one had seen, our eyes were like this. And eventually we got our sight back. And I tell you now, we sat there laughing our socks off. Literally, we've been gassed. Governor turned up. Great job, guys. And I don't really know, but if you touch someone or you get this particles on your hand, then obviously the governor's like, well done, lads. He didn't know. And he's touched his face. Next thing, he's crying. Governor's crying. We're crying. The nurses have got it on there. But I remember that memory now, 35 years later, because we had such a laugh. We had a roll around. We licked a really violent guy. We got injured. And we're still in the next day. No thought of going home sick or anything. And just, you know, you were working with people. You know, I couldn't see, but I couldn't see what was going on, but I knew my mate was in the thick of it. Just knew. And that, where do you get that? Where do you get that kind of bond where you just absolutely know someone's got your back?
But you seem to have mastered that, and obviously your karate and other martial arts has kind of gave you that strong mindset. I remember interviewing Peter McAleese, SAS.
Yeah.
Mindset, unbelievable, never broken. I've interviewed soldiers, I've interviewed SAS men, and they're broken. I interviewed him, and I was asked him certain questions. He says, listen, that's what I signed up for. That was my duty. I don't fucking care. I would have killed anyone. If I was given a task to do, I would have done it 100%.
Yeah.
And that was it. I says, do you ever worry about the people you've killed? He says, no, that was my job.
Yeah.
He believed solely in what he was doing was the right thing. Love that mindset.
Yeah.
Including yourself, you've got that mindset of you're there to do a job and you've done it to the best of your ability. Whether there's tear-ups, whatever, you seem to have laughed it off. Now, I've interviewed police who are broken. Mental health gone, suicidal, alcoholics, drug addicts. They can't handle what they've seen. They can't handle what they've done. You're obviously a stronger mindset because of what you've went through. You'd have seen that stuff as well, but you handle it with a pedigree of, it is what it is. I laugh about it, I have a joke. But the other side, how do these people then go down that route and can't handle the circumstances that they put themselves in?
Well, first off, you know, to all of those kind of people, those people who've been harmed and damaged by the job, I'm not stronger than them or better than them, and I tell, because I've had great mates who've broken and are broken by the job and things that have happened. I never turn my nose up at it. I'm just lucky. Right, I am lucky. My tough childhood, and a whole host of things that have happened to me in my life just made me tough. And but I'll go back to my mum. That ability, she had some really bad life, right? But she never stopped smiling. She was always thinking about other people. And I was thinking, there was a period where I was divorced and I was in a section house, which is basically a room with a window and a sink and a bed, right? And I was in, say, 40 or whatever years of age. And this wasn't how I thought life was going to play out for me. And I was lying in bed, and I used to lie in bed some nights and I'd be thinking, it's going to get better. I feel shit now. This is bad, but I'll feel better. And I'm thinking, I've got great kids. My kids kept me on the straight and narrow. I can't start drinking because if I start losing it, I'm going to lose my kids. So you can't be drinking, Kev. You can't be doing this. Yeah, I'm not better. I'm not stronger. I was just lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. And don't be wrong, I've got my demons. Boy, have I got my demons. But, you know, I keep them nicely wrapped away. And maybe one day maybe it'll be my turn to, you know, but I hope not. But I never look down my nose at these people because how do you put a price on it? Someone sees a cot death or a horrible RTA, or, you know, how do you, and then go and see your kids? You know, I've seen people die. I've seen all sorts of things happen, and some of the very best people I've ever worked with have been deeply affected by the job. So I have no criticism at all of anyone who has to walk away or is damaged by it, because it's unique. That's why doctors, nurses break, because you're just seeing bad stuff all the time. It's not like, you know, it's not like the end of the news and they show a story about a puppy, didn't they, just to make the news light. It's not like the end of your tour of duty, something nice happens and we all have an ice cream and go, well, see you tomorrow. It ain't quite like that. Your tour of duty might be an absolute roller coaster of bad things, one thing after another, and there's no decompression. And so I was lucky, but I'm not saying in the future I might break. And for those people who have crises and hit some bad times, they have my sort of sympathy.
It's crazy though, Leif, that some of your best soldiers, some of your best corporals come from the most worst upbringings.
Yeah.
Chris Ryan, who I've been speaking about recently, I interviewed him. He was the longest escape, and he became an SAS selection. He used to train the kids, and he says obviously when you get into the jungle, a lot of people fall off, but he got to grow that connection with them. And he was saying some of them who make it is the ones who go through the toughest upbringing, because in their mind they've not got anything else. They've got something to prove to themselves. They've got some sort of inner demons that. It's that saying, something about the devil, but you should learn how to dance with the devil. Like, they learn how to control that trauma, control that pain, and you've mastered it to a good degree, and it's great to laugh. It's great to have that dark humour, and I believe that's what gets me. For every time there's darkness in my life, I'll laugh it off.
Yeah.
I'll process it, but I will laugh it off, and I think it's key to laugh, because bad shit does happen to everyone, and I would rather laugh it off than try and let it slip and let my mind go, because once you start spiraling, once you start repeating that cycle, I'm not well at all, you just you're
going down a rabbit hole, and where do you end up? I mean, what's the choice? What, for me, I had triplets. I've got a disabled son. What was the choice for me? I couldn't roll him in the ball because they would have suffered. So that was my motivation. Keep paying the bills. Make sure my kids are safe. Always safe. Going to school, doing well at school, better life than me. And that was my gift to them. If they believe it's just give them more.
Yeah, it's important. Family's everything.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's what keeps us going. I never really learned how to be a dad, if I'm honest. I had 2 girls pregnant at the same time. I just got out of prison. My dad was dying with leukemia. Yeah. My uncle got murdered. My best friend killed himself. I had 2 girls pregnant at the same time. I was a fucking drug addict. I was a gambling addict. And
you had the full bag.
Yeah, I had a taste of everything.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't. The gambling was the worst one. That was the hidden addiction. That was the one I'd done every day, morning, noon, and night.
Yeah.
The drugs, the drink, it was all hand in hand. It was all daily. I know how to spike up, come low, balance it out. I mastered it. I used to go for a few sunbeds, wear a couple of nice suits. I kind of manipulated that I was fine. I wasn't. I was broken. And it's took me maybe, I reckon, 10 years to understand what it's like to be a dad, and then the role of being a dad.
And the responsibility.
Not being selfish and being there, being present.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking drink, if you're taking drugs, you ain't a dad, you're a coward. You're hiding from your past. Your kids need you.
Yeah.
So if you're suffering, suffer. Of course, suffer.
Yeah.
But you can't do it around your kids because they're a reflection of you. So for me, it's to lead by example. And it's to try and show them and give them the opportunities that I didn't have. They don't realise it. I'm very strict with my daughter. She doesn't have sleepovers.
Yeah.
She still likes to moan about it, but she's 15 now. I'm starting to think she'll start to realise what I meant by that. Yes, because I interview enough people to realise how dark the world is.
Yeah.
Not everybody's dark, but I'm a protective father, so you're not doing these certain things and putting yourself in these positions when I'm not around. Yes, it's a little controlling. Yes, it's a little, but I would rather be that than take any chances.
Yeah.
It's my pride and joy. It's my kids. I would die for them. I would kill for them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many dads would, but that's the essence for me. That's what life's about, is being a father, being a role model, being important in your kid's life. Because
absolutely.
If you're not, I've got kids to different women, which makes it harder, but it was a stage in my life. I never thought I would make it to 30. And sometimes I was glad. Sometimes that thought process as well, because I had so much pain. Still got a lot of shit to work on. I've still got a lot of shit to process, but life is still beautiful, you know, and we still make mistakes. And I speak to enough people to realise none of us are perfect.
No.
We all make mistakes, but for me, the true essence of life is having family. The true essence of life is trying to be a better individual to then teach your kids not to make the same mistakes as me.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, I don't call them sacrifices, or it was just a deal, isn't it? They didn't ask to be born. So the deal is they're born, and my duty now until they get to whatever age is to make sure they're safe, just safe and loved. They know they're loved. And we'll clash. I'm saying no, like you were at sleepovers. I'm saying no to whatever. But you know what? That's your job. I never saw myself with my, people would probably hate this, but I never saw my kids as my friend. I'm your dad. You got friends at school. I'm your dad. So I'm going to say things you might not like to hear. I'm going to be tough occasionally. Because my number one job is to make sure you have a great life, that you know you're loved, that I'm there for you, that you can always call me over anything. There's nothing we can't talk about ever. And they know that. And they really do know that. And I love that thing. But I'm dad. I'm not a mate. I'm dad. And that's how I worked it. But, you know, like for me, it was just family's huge. I didn't realise it when I was younger. But my mum died recently. And it's huge.
How hard was that for you becoming a dad, knowing what your dad done? Were you scared that could have been the case? Or were you just so ingrained in being the dad that your dad wasn't? If you know what I mean? Was it scary though?
Well, do you know what? My kids have. I mean, I love. I love a drink. What couple doesn't love going for a drink, right? I love going. Or did absolutely love going for a beer. But my kids have never seen me drunk ever. I'll be lucky if they've even seen me drink a beer. because when I was with them, they were the priority. That I picked them up from their mum, whatever. I'd pick them up, and my number one rule was they go home in one piece. They don't have. There's no trauma. There's no drama. They come with me. They have a great time. We do whatever we need to do. Schoolwork, times tables, read a book, go this, whatever it was. They have a wonderful experience. We're growing together. They don't know how much they healed me. My kids were so good for me, but of course, in my back of my mind, I was thinking, you're never going to be like your dad. You're never going to be that man, and I'm not giving him a hard time. He had his stuff going on, but I know this, that my mum and my brothers and sisters will love me saying it was special. She was special, and I was no mummy's boy. I drove her crazy, right? But I always knew she was special. Even when I was giving her a load of shit as a teenager, I knew she was just a one-off, unbreakable, just unbreakable, and a sense of humor and a joy of life, just always laughing, always wanted to be involved. Brilliant with my kids when they were born, just an incredible person. And when if I'm going to be anything, I'm going to be a tribute to her. I'm going to be like her. I'm going to be a good person. Even though anyone listening who knows me will know that I have seriously fucked up sometimes, because we all do, don't we? You can't help it. But if you keep on trying, I think
it's important to hold your hands up to your fuck ups and your misery. Take ownership of your sins,
Yeah.
Because everybody's got them. Everybody's got mistakes. And listen, you could be the best person on the planet just now. One incident, one breakup, one loss can send you over the edge, and you can become a totally different person. So nobody's immune to pain. Nobody's immune to being this perfect person, because we all suck at times. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes. We all say things we regret. And that's the beauty of life. It's just to try and be better than that, because it's all learnt behaviours as well, how you were raised, and it's important. How did you get into then doing all that, going through everything, to then SO19? What is that, special ops? What is that?
SO19 is the Met Police. I think they've rebranded it to MO19 or something.
They've changed it every few years, don't they?
Yeah. But basically, the 19 is the Met's firearms unit, and it encompasses the training wing, the cadre, who train firearms officers for all the different roles of firearms officers. But Trojan was what I wanted to join. So I'd done about 12 years on borough. And I decided, right, so
on the beat basically for
12 years? 12 years, I was on the
CID or anything?
Me and paperwork.
Undercover?
No, I'd have been a disaster. Don't let me near any kind of paperwork. I'm more dangerous with a pen.
Did you get offered that? Because there must have been a great cop.
Yeah, people sort of said, like, have you thought about taking promotion? Have you thought about this? But, I was old enough to know that I was a train wreck in an office, a literal train wreck. And any kind of paperwork, anything, I just couldn't get my head around it. So so I remember I was sitting in a yard one day. I was like chatting with them, and this really cool guy came over as a DS on a unit, and he goes, you living the dream here, Kev. And I went, yeah, I'm loving it. And he goes, there's more to the world than like basically driving cars around Notting Hill and being a bit of a geezer. And he hit a real nerve. He said a lot more stuff, and he really hit a nerve. And I'd mates on SO19. And I'd always thought about it. But the thing was, the failure rate was through the roof. The course was so tough. I think it only came out once a year then. So you had to get to apply, you had to get your superintendent, your inspector, and your sergeant all had to write a report saying that you were suitable. So before you even got an application out, these people had to say you were the kind of person who might be suitable. Then the application, then I had a board. And sure enough, I got on a course. The course was a nightmare. I tell you what, the course was 2 weeks shooting a Glock, and then 4 weeks of learning the tactics of being an ARV officer. And it's brutal. It's brutal. They didn't pull any punches, the instructors. They really, because, whether people like having the pressure applied or not, they've got to know somehow what sort of person you are. They've only got you for 6 weeks in all. They've got to find out what makes you tick. Are you the kind of person, who will crumble under pressure? Are you the kind of person who will keep it together? So the course induces stress, a lot of stress. Now, the instructors will deny that, but they do induce stress. You're under stress because you want to pass, but also they're adding new skills. A new skill. You learn a skill, how to do this stop or that stop, or stop a car or whatever. Then there's a new skill, then another skill, until eventually you're at overload. It's just like so much. and people fall by the wayside because they just can't take it all in. And I was very lucky, and I think the martial arts helped with that. But I could just compartmentalize it. Okay, we're doing this. Just deal with this. Don't look ahead. Don't think about passing. Just get good at this. Right, we've added this on now. We've bolted something else on. Bolted something else on. And so you just like whether you're on the range shooting, whether you're doing a vehicle options or pedestrian stops or dealing with buildings, I was just like one step. Just do one step. Focus on that one thing. Get good. Pass. Next step. And sure enough, after I was very lucky, I passed the course. And I was accepted onto SO19 as an ARV officer.
How long was the course?
So it's 6 weeks for that.
It's pretty.
Well, it's
light,
but now, now I think it's I would be lying if I told you how long it is. But there's so much more they're taught, so much more, which I won't talk about. But the course is huge and really all encompassing. But back in 2003 when I joined, 6 weeks. I walked through the gates of the new base. I joined a relief, and you're out in the cars. You're in the mix, and you're trained. But the great thing was, we'd all done the same course. You sat in that room looking around at these really experienced coppers, and they were all coppers. They weren't people who just joined the police because they wanted to carry a gun. They were all experienced coppers with real backgrounds in policing who then joined firearms. So I'm in this room, I had 12 years. I felt like a kid. Like 12 years, so what? 20. Whatever, blah, blah, all of it on top, like Tottenham, Hackney, blah, they'd worked the toughest grounds. They were good coppers. And so I'm surrounded by these guys. And there were no girls then on my relief. So that's not me being sexist. It just was men. There were very few female. There were some female officers.
What do you actually think of that? Because it's not to be sexist, but I watched when Donald Trump got shot and there was a couple of the girls there and they couldn't get their gun out. And I thought, I think men are, listen, there's some great coppers, female, there's some amazing females at certain things, but I just watched them and they struggled to get their gun out. And I just think, should they be really doing a job at that intense with people's life at risk,
Well, I have to say,
I'm going to get shit for this, but
yeah, you probably will, but I won't, because I'll tell you this, I've worked, and they know who they are. I can't say the names because some of them are still actively doing the job, with on borough. I worked with some unbelievable female officers who had so much guts, and they would fight like a man. If they were chasing a suspect, and they would fight, they were there in the mix. When I hit 19, there weren't many girls, but that changed over the years I stayed, because I was there 18 years. More girls started to join this, the firearms world, and I've worked alongside unbelievable. I mean, 3 of my bosses were female, Trojan ones, who's like inspector. Girls on my relief who've gone on to do great things, and I wish I could say their names because so people know they are real, and they were fantastic coppers, and they weren't flapping. They were they were tough, and they were female officers. It didn't matter they were female. Ultimately, when you're there, when you're in a car, you want to look at the other 2 crew members and know their sound, that they have got their shit together. And for me, it didn't matter if they were male or female, as long as I knew they were good at the job. And I'm really been lucky because some of the girls I've worked with were bloody brilliant. And they were, if they jumped out, they had no problem squaring someone away, and they had no problem getting in the thing. And even, I've just worked with some great ladies, right? And they know who they are. Yeah, of course. But let's remember, there's some really milky blokes out there.
I was going to say that.
So there's some milky, there's some milky guys out there too, and that's no disrespect. It's just there are, but you got to take each person on their merit.
Do you think you've got that in you, or do you think it can be trained? Do you think you've already got to have it with all those years' experience instead of getting put into the deep end? And if you're milky, if you're kind of flaky and kind of a wee bit nervous, do you think that's? Do you think you can be trained to not give a fuck?
Realistically, I think to try and train someone's mindset or the way their DNA is very, very difficult. And that's why I think, like I say, I'm a huge fan of policing and police officers. I am pro police, right? I think yes, we're out there doing it. Well, I'm not sorry, but they are. And but if you're not wired for it, if you do shy away from sort of physical, like the contact sports, whatever, if you're someone, that's not to say you wouldn't make a fantastic detective, right? But even then, detectives get in punch-ups and fights and roll-arounds. The flying squad are bloody detectives, so blah, 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 blah. you have to bring something to the party. You have to bring some kind of grit, and that doesn't mean to say you're a fighter. You don't have to be a fighter, but have you got grit? Will you chase that suspect? And if they fight, will you fight? Even if you fight badly, will you fight? Will you hold on to them with your dying breath? I mean, I worked with a guy once who's passed away now. Incredible police officer. Chased a guy down, and suspect jumped in a canal, and he didn't stop. He jumped straight in the canal, swam after him. Are you the kind of person who will, if you really are going to get your man, right? And I've worked with girls and male officers who really are the real deal. So to the public, there was a comment made by somebody on Reform, a female member of Reform the other day, saying that female officers shouldn't patrol. What a load of bollocks. Female officers, judge each person on their credibility, judge them on their character, what they bring to the party. I was lucky, right? I turned up. I knew the contract. I had a contract in my mind. I put my uniform on. I'm in play. I don't expect any mercy. I don't expect anyone to run up and give me a medal. That's the deal. I love it.
You're still dressed like a copper, don't you?
Someone took the mickey out. I had to go to a meeting and they said, is that a job shirt? I suddenly thought, for God's sake, I don't normally dress like this.
When you walk in, I thought, you still fucking
it's got epaulets. And I do apologise. I had to go to a meeting and I had to wear a shirt, and it was a hot day today, so I thought I'd go. So, sorry.
What was your first protocol? What was your first job? Do you remember?
For firearms?
Yeah.
It was,
Must have been nervous there.
Oh, yeah, because you're working with very, very sound people. And then, obviously, once you land on Trojan, you're not a made man. It's not like you're in the door. You've now got to prove yourself on every job. Every job. There's no you're only as good as your last job. Is so true. Mm-hmm. Every 6 weeks you go training where you're tested, really tested. So you're constantly under the microscope to perform. And my first job that I probably remember the best, the one that stands out, is it was a night of the Mobos, which was a music awards. And because there was always the after parties in central London, there was lots of trouble at the after parties with gang members. And we went to the Mobos, we were outside, parked up, and then they said, now go to central London. I was in Windmill Street, and it's outside the sort of the Windmill Club. It's like a strip club. And there were shots fired into a Range Rover. This white Range Rover had bullet holes in it, and we screeched up. I've jumped out, and someone's got extracted, and there's someone else, and they meant to have firearms. So I'm covering them both. And I'm like, what is going on? I don't even know what's going on. It's been so fast and furious. There's people running down the road screaming that shots have been fired. And I'm covering these two sort of very interesting guys who they were full on gangsters, these two lads. And they're like, and then my mates have come back, cuffed them, and we've done the car. And it was madness. And I remember they got swifted off to a Charing Cross nick, or different nicks because of the firearms offences. I go to different police stations. And I thought, well, we're going to write some notes now, are we? And my crew were like, fuck that. We've got another call to go to. Other side of Soho, again, someone's been stabbed. We rock up there, and then we're somewhere else, and there was notes, and then something else. And it was just full on. We were just like, and that's what I loved about it. You would do the job, and it would be like, no, there's no time to stop. Because in those days, there was only 5 cars for the whole of London in 2003. Now there's lots more. So 5 cars, you don't tie them up. You deal with a call, literally you'd be finishing a job, and your earpiece, you'd hear, guys, anyone near Hackney, anyone near anywhere, and right, let's go. And the car would be back on the road again, planning for the next job. And you deal with that, and then you might ping out to wherever, I don't know, Tottenham, or you end up down in South London because they're short. It was an absolute roller coaster of just, and the great thing about that was my skill set went through the roof because I'm getting exposure every day. And it felt like every day you're jumping out of a car, maybe twice a day, 3 times, whatever, pointing guns at people. And no 2 jobs are the same. Maybe no interviews are the same. Mm-hmm. You never know what they're going to do. You never know if they're going to comply or not. And, and that's when you've got to be a good copper. That's when you've got to dominate them. And that might be physical language, that look on your face, the way you stand, your posture. Everything about you has to say you are.
Confidence.
You are the real deal. And I love that. What
was your daily routine like? Were you on calls every day with firearms, or is it?
Yeah, so Trojan's remit is to deal with patrol in uniform, in cars, 3 up, to deal with spontaneous calls.
Why uniform?
Because because there are units within SO19 who do plainclothes work, and who are called CTSFOs, and that's a different world, an incredible world, exceptional officers. But we were the visible presence, because I think we were the visible presence of armed policing, because there was a balance. The British public don't want coppers armed. Senior officers don't want. It's such a
Why?
Well, I think first of all, you've already got 30,000 cops. How are you going to train them? How many would be suitable? Who would have a gun? How many guns do you have to buy? And the training. Can you imagine trying to train a police force?
Yeah.
Whereas America, they're already trained. The new recruits join, they're trained, they join, they're armed. But we've got no culture of it. You'd have to train from scratch a whole nation of police officers. And how many would say, I ain't carrying a gun? Well, does that make them not eligible to be a policeman anymore? And some wouldn't be, and some might not pass the course. So the senior officers, government, whatever, decided, right, we're going to have armed response vehicles, a visible presence, and they're going to support our unarmed colleagues who are out on, facing danger, who might face a real, unbelievably high risk, and we'll deploy. So spontaneous, anything that can happen. And so, we're going to go to it.
Was it always free in a car?
Always three.
Why three?
Well, because in the counties where they have less personnel and maybe less firearms calls, they could go with a model of two, right? Because they didn't have, it's just the model they went with. But in the Met, and very brilliant, whoever thought it was a genius, you have a driver who gets you there. You've got the radio guy in front who's managing all the radios and stuff, and you've got the guy in back on maps. Okay, but when we get there, say it's a house, the driver or whoever will set up a control, start managing the call, getting resources there. Say someone in a house with a gun, who's threatening to kill himself or shoot his neighbour. So you can have one guy on the front and you'll have one officer on the back, right? So that's two of them now deployed. They're containing that address. While controllers then can have more cars, can have a dog, can have a helicopter, whatever they need to do. So 3 is the magic number, because if he comes out in the back garden and he starts doing something crazy, the guy or lady on black can deal with him. If he comes out the front door, we can deal with the guy on the front can deal with him. And so, and so all the while, and if something really bad happens, control can throw the radio and control will join whoever's in danger. But 3 really works brilliantly. So the training is all around 3. 1 in control, and every job needs a control. Someone managing, passing information, say, this has happened, we need this, we need this, we need that equipment, whatever, And so 3 works brilliantly. And if it's just 2 of you, bear in mind the amount of calls, that's a lot to balance. Radios, map reading, because remember, back in those days, there was no computers in the cars. So you're reading out of a map book. And also you've got to get the guns out of the safe, make the guns ready in those days. Now they're in condition 1, which means loaded.
So they're all loaded straight away. What guns you got? Glocks? What else?
Well, in my day, we had a Glock 17 and we had an MP5, which then evolved from the MP5. It evolved into the G36. From the 36, we went to a SIG. The SIG evolved then into an MCX. And they might even have a new weapon now, weapons platform.
How many bullets in each weapon?
Oh, they vary. The Glock would have 2 magazines of 17 rounds. But as for your long, which is your primary weapon, I wouldn't be able to tell you now what they're carrying.
Do you have lasers on them?
Some of the weapons do now have laser sighting, different sighting systems, because obviously the technology is out there, and anything that makes your accuracy, improves your accuracy under pressure, can't be a bad thing. There's all sorts of technology that...
Do you have snipers in your team as well?
Well, they're called riflemen, and the department does train riflemen, but their role is not in our world, because in our world it's like fast time. You'd never...
So what is your world then? I use just surround the area. How does it operate? Because if you've got plain clothes, if you've got...
Oh, yeah, but remember, they don't patrol. These officers who are doing CTSFO work, counter-terrorism work, hostage work, whatever, they don't patrol. They're at the base or or out on jobs, specific pre-planned jobs. ARVs are spontaneous, so it's anything that immediate access to a firearm, possession of a firearm, otherwise so dangerous. So these people who are... it's happening now. And you've got to get a car there. So you imagine it's like the guy who decides he had a breakdown at work and decides to turn up and kill his boss. Or it's the road rage where guy jumps out of his car and he produces a machete or a gun. How many times a day does that happen somewhere in the country? It's the guy who's done something crazy, really dangerous, with a firearm or a knife or whatever. And so, or acid, people now arm themselves with acid. So it's happening now. There is no time to start planning. We need to just get a car there. And the ARVs patrol 24/7. You're giving a part of London a patrol, and it might be man Cold Harbour Lane now with an axe. Boom, show Trojan. Let's straight to the scene. Let's deal with the threat. And then he's now gone into an address and we're here screaming. All right, okay, that's now gone from a stop in the street to an emergency search of a building. He's obviously harming people in there. We need to get in a building, so we're trained to search buildings.
When is the right time to go through a building? Do you get a certain, say if there's hostages?
Yeah.
How does that operate? How do you then decide enough's enough to then go through it?
There's absolutely no set way of looking at it.
Because did you ever see, sorry for interrupting, did you ever see the embassy? I think it was the Iranian embassy, or maybe, I think Maggie Thatcher was there, and it was SAS men went through the door, and because no one knew what the SAS was really then. Yeah. And she says, no, keep it on the TV because I want people to know, don't fucking mess with us here in Britain. Like,
that was Thatcher.
Yeah, no fucking about. And it got recorded, and the men went through with the grenades and their bomb. And I think one of the men gets stuck in the rope. But it showed you the damage the SAS can do when done. I don't think there was any killing. I think they took control of the place.
Oh, no.
Like, when do you... Who makes those calls? Do you make those calls if you get someone behind you?
First of all, you've got to remember that's a terrorist incident and a hostage situation. So the military intervened to deal with that threat. ARVs will deal... If we start talking hostages, which is a different kind, people held hostage, that's a very specific incident. And that's where specialist officers... the Met have got CTSFOs.
What are they?
Counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers. Now, ARV officers who, after a number of years or whatever, do this extra course and then go to a different element of the department. And they'll deal with a whole host of stuff, like, say, terrorism, blah, blah, blah. But one of their remits is hostage rescue, and they are trained in the rescue of hostages. Because trying to rescue hostages, is one hell of a challenge, right? Not a world I'm party to. So our stuff... If someone's in an address, we have the ability to act spontaneously. So if we turn up at a call and there's low-key information, someone's seen walking into a address with a firearm. So we'll contain it. We're going to listen. We're going to say, right, get some intel on that house. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's come back. It's known for domestics, violent domestics. Oh, right. Your threat level's going up. We'll wait. We might put a phone call into the address. We'll get more resources, because ultimately you want it to end safely for everybody. You want to talk the people out. However, there's also part of our training as AV officers, where if someone inside the address is suddenly in danger, shots fired or stabbed or whatever, we have the training to get into that address quickly and do an emergency search. And that's basically to save life. So if I was the OFC, I was an Operational Firearms Commander, if I was in control or en route to a call and they suddenly go, the house now, all they can hear is bang, bang, bang in the address, or screams and people saying he's killing us or whatever, I might suddenly say, right, forget containing the address. It's an emergency search, straight to the front door. We're going in to save life. The tactic will really depend on the information. And so you really... you're governed by the information and what you see when you get there. You really just react to what you see in front of you. So if something's kicking off and life is on the line, then we're gonna get in the middle of it. But like I say, for when you're talking hostages and stuff like that and a whole other stuff, that is the world of the city. Yeah.
How is it for a man who would die for his badge, who loved his job, who loved his comrades around him, when you've got terrorist attacks, when they're killing innocent British people? How hard is that? As someone on the job, like, do you get someone's on the bridge with a knife, someone's on the bridge with a bomb? Because these men do unbelievable. These armed response who go straight there, willing to risk their life. I don't think they get the credit they deserve, because Britain was once one of the strongest nations in the world. We conquered nearly all of the world. We still owned a quarter or half of it over 100 years ago. It just seems to be becoming a little more fragile. But I just think for the British people and what we're all about, like, we are strong people. We don't really take any bullshit, and I think we can discredit some people, and I think divide, and we can all fight and argue. But for some of these terrorist attacks, or people coming here and killing their own people, How is that for someone at your own caliber to be seeing that?
Well, you know, when I was in 19, you had Borough, you had the attack on Borough Market, you had London Bridge attack where the members of the public came forward and took the guy out themselves.
Yeah, real
You've had the attack on, was it Westminster Bridge, where they used the vehicles and then they killed the police officer outside Parliament, which that was a real shock, unbelievably shocking to see that officer lose his life. But you stay professional. You know, like my job, if I'm on duty and whatever the call is, my job is to turn up and do my job. And there's a great thing without fear or favour when you take the oath. And I'll just turn up and I'll deal with what's in front of me. I've never had to deal with a terrorist. I'd like to think if I was ever faced with that threat, I'd play it professionally and I'd do my job. Other officers I know, and they've done their job brilliantly, and they're incredibly brave. And for a week or two, the Met or Trojan are the best thing in the world. We give it a couple of weeks, and you know we're back to just being bloody police again, aren't we? You know, but the threat of terrorism isn't going away, is it? Right?
How bad is it?
I don't know anymore because I'm out of the loop. But there's always the chance. There's always. I mean, I imagine secretly going on behind our backs or going on right now. The security services are doing a great job to try and keep Britain safe. You know, but how real the threat is, you know, there's a whole load of stuff. You know, the lone actor now is the lone wolf. You know, there's someone who gets radicalized or whatever their motivation is. It's very hard to stop. And you've got to remember, you know, we the security services try and stop them nice and early, you know, and we probably don't even hear about it. The first 19 hear about it is when someone's ploughing into people in a car or attacking Borough Market, and all we can do is get there as fast as we can, be as professional as we can, and try and save as many lives as we can. And that's, you know, so training, you know, I've said this to a lot of people and people don't get it, like well, carrying a gun. We also carry a first aid kit. And I tell you now, I've worked with people, we say in my 30-year career, boy, have I saved some lives. But because we get medic training, and I'm not a medic, but I've worked with medics. And the amount of people, good guys and bad guys, who've turned up, been shot, stabbed, whatever, that SO19 have saved their life. You would not believe. And that's something I wish the commissioner and a few other people would jump up and down about. Say, you know, there's not 8-9 million people in London. 19 discharge, shoot, maybe pull the trigger once a year. What, yeah, really? And all the criminalities. That's how good we are. That's how good we are at dominating bad people. That's how good we are at doing tactically. That's how good, I say we, I'm sorry, they. That's how good they are, right? The training, the pressure, the constant training, going back to Milton to be tested on your skill set. It's unrelenting, right? And trust me, it's a huge burden to bear. If you know, you've got to be ready for it. And you might be called on to pull the trigger. You might be called on to do stuff, to do really dangerous, crazy stuff. But the public are lucky because, you know, every time we jump out with a first aid kit as well. And the amount of people who I've been needling in their blood, dealing with all sorts of stuff, who were gangsters, drug dealers, all sorts of bad, you know, shooting people, doing all sorts of stuff. And we're saving their life. We're not just standing over them going, oh, he's been shot by X. You know, we're doing our best to save their life. And the public will remember that SO19 or all firearms officers around the country don't just drive around drinking coffee and eating cake. You know, when we get deployed, you're going to get an unbelievable group of people, unbelievably professional group of people who are, it's about saving life. SO19 is about saving life, you know, but to save a life, you might have to take one. And that's the reality. And from the day I joined the police, I've always accepted that, you know, you could be at the sharp end. I chose to be at the sharp end, be on Borough, be on the ARVs. I liked being on the sharp end. I liked making decisions, big decisions. I liked the pressure of it. And I've been surrounded by great people. My sergeants, you know, through my time in SO19, and they know who they are, PT and, you know, all of them, you know, unbelievable people, unflappable, absolutely unflappable. Nothing fazed them, right? No matter how bad, how violent, how, you know, they're on top of it. And that professionalism, you just go home and I smile on your face. no matter how bad, because that's how good. And I'd look at the public. Sometimes I go home on the train and I'd see a load of lads from the city all on it, and I'd be sitting there like in my tracksuit, looking scruffy as hell. And I'd be thinking, you have no idea. You're lucky there's people, not me, but people doing the job every day on borough, response officers, detectives, everybody is working to try and keep people safe. And most of the time, all they get is shit. And people do not get how hard the impact on your life, on your family, the responsibility. And let's be honest, if you fuck up, everybody wants your head on a spike, don't they?
How hard does it? Did you come across many dead bodies?
Yeah, cool. In firearms, yeah, because you go in. Say someone's been shot, it'll be true. We'll go first there because the first thing before even paramedics can get there, we got to get there and make sure the scene's safe. You can't have paramedics jumping out of an ambulance and then the shooter's still there. So you can be first on scene, and you can be first on scene a lot. And like I say, when I joined in 2003, 5 cars, you're turning up at a lot of shootings, a lot of stabbings, a lot of bad things, and you just got to deal with it. And seeing dead bodies is this thing. Watching people die is another thing. It's the paramedics, or we're working on them, and they die. That's part of the process. And that's just part of what you have to buy into. But is that the borough PC has got 2 weeks in, has to knock on someone's door and give the mum and dad a message that their kid's been killed on holiday? Definitely. Is that all of these things are traumatic. All of these things take a toll. There's no way you walk away from that and go, all right, it's going to have an impact.
Did you have to go and speak to some parents?
Oh, I've had that. When I first joined the police, you got a thing called death messages where.
How is that for a copper to give a death message?
But if you're telling them that their 90-year-old mother passed away in a caring home, not that you give a message like that, but if you're telling them that their daughter was on a gap year in Thailand and she's been killed, or especially with something violent, they've been murdered, and you have to stand there and give that news in the house to mum and dad, that's unbelievably traumatic. Because when do you leave? How do you deliver it? How do you say to someone you've never met, who's looking at you and they're scared already? Why are you at their front door? Why have you said, can I come in the living room? Why have you confirmed 3 times that they are Mr. and Mrs. X? Right? Yeah, it's tough. But but the whole job's tough. And it's only made bearable by the people you work with. So when you come back, you've got a great skipper and he's like, oh, you cool? Yeah, I'm cool. Fancy a beer? Yes. Right? It's that camaraderie, that loyalty. It's huge. It gets you through. But maybe people are stretched so thin now, especially in the county forces. They're dealing with 30, 40 crimes. They're overwhelmed with work. They haven't got the backup from, the numbers have been cut. The pressure on them to just keep going out. It's not surprising people break. It's not surprising that officers like, I can't cope with dealing with 40 crimes. How can you deal with 40 crimes? How can you give each member of the public who's a victim the correct amount of time and effort and care if you're dealing with multiple, and more coming out? You can't deal with stuff like that. And eventually people burn out. I think that's huge, burnout in police.
What's the worst thing you ever seen?
Oh, I don't know if you can call it the worst, but things, I'd probably rather not say, if I'm honest, because I'll probably turn into a gibbering wreck. But it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, just do some job, like, I don't think get the credit that he's deserve, and it's important. And I've took a big understanding of what any police officer does, what any NHS worker, what any doctor, fire brigade, whatever it is, the service that they provide on a daily basis in such a negative environment, dead bodies, babies, rapes, murders, suicides, like, it's even soldiers, it's not, human beings shouldn't be seeing that, because it's a deterioration of shit, the screams or whatever it is, waking up with the night terrors. And you've got to support these people, and this is a massive thing that I'm for, because I always say it, soldiers willing to go and die for their country, but nobody fights for them. They come back same as anything. There's not enough things in place for people to go and speak to, and like you say, it's trying to get rid of that emotion or try and face the emotion. We put it in a bottle, or we'll take drugs, and there's not enough things in place for these people who do this amazing work, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, as a nation, we're very happy to send our young men off to fight in foreign lands. But when they come back and they're broken physically, like they've been, a whole host of injuries that these poor young men come back with, whereas there has to be support. And usually it's charities. It's not the government. It's good people reaching out, helping them. And there are so many great people helping our servicemen, but and they deserve it 100%. But I don't know about the police. I've sometimes people think about police officers, and it's like, well, get on with it. You chose to do it. And yeah, we did. Right, to the camera, yes, we did. And it's bloody brilliant. And I'm lucky. But some people weren't. Some people ain't. And some people need a hand. And they need a bit of sympathy. A little bit of understanding.
How is it when you see things in the news, like the two young girls, Dale Cregan invited them to their house and killed these two innocent girls? How is it for police force and people in that environment to see things like that?
Well, I remember that incident. And it was so shocking, those two young officers, those two female officers dying in the way they did, and it was so malicious and cruel to steal their lives away. And he's a monster. There's no two ways about it. He is an absolute monster. He'll never leave prison. And I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You have to know that the people like that, who are such a danger, who are to the public. Forget police, just to the public. They need to be put away, and the public need to be protected from them. And the police and the public need to appreciate that two wonderful young police officers, with female police officers, are dead doing their job. They chose a job, and it got them killed. Right? What about the people they leave behind? Their mums, dads, brothers, sisters, husbands, children. How devastating is that for them? And that's what I mean. So, society, we don't ask for a lot as coppers. How about give us a decent wage? Right? How about that? How about if we make a mistake, you have a little bit of understanding and say, look, yeah, that copper's freaking great copper. Yeah, he was a bit overzealous there. Oh, whatever. Let's show a bit of compassion and say, that's a good cop. We need to keep that cop. Yeah, he might need a few words of advice, or she might need a few words of advice. But if they're a good cop and they're doing the job and they're keeping the public safe, then let's not just be throwing them under the train. Let's see, let's give people a chance. And if you've got a really proven track record of being a good cop, then you should have some credit in the bank, so that if you do screw up, of course not if it's criminal, it's something really outrageous, but this wasn't criminal. He hasn't been nicked for anything like the lad from Bournemouth, has he? This was the perception of senior officers who decided to destroy his career. I mean, imagine trying to get in a job, if he's fortunate because of public support behind him, but imagine trying to get a job as a sack copper. I mean, what are people going to think? Well, you're corrupt, you're this, you're that. How bad's that? Imagine these kids going to school. What about that? You know what? I would just wish sometimes senior officers could be held to account. Say, really, the stuff you lot get up to, it's not right. Support your officers, back your officers, step up in public, stop listening to your advisors, stop thinking of what the government will think. And have some guts. And if that means you piss off government, well then, so what? I mean, have some soul, have some heart. And governments come and go. Who cares what government think? Who cares what the mayor thinks? Yeah, you probably won't get yourself a nice job, or you won't get a book deal when you retire or whatever. But at least you might have a bit of credibility. And you might, the rank and file can say, that was a commissioner, that was a whatever. He had our back. He fought our corner. He gets it. And maybe if we had leaders like that, police officers might come to work and feel, what, we are valued. We do a great job.
Do you feel undervalued?
I think police officers do, yeah, definitely. Pay rises are a joke, taking stuff away all the time. The scrutiny, the constant scrutiny, there's too much to even go into. But I'm amazed that people still join, but thank God they do. There are good people out there who want to do the job, because it is an amazing job. It is absolutely amazing. It's an honourable job. And I've got a romantic view of these things with my background. What someone once said to me, I was like a dinosaur, I had this romantic view of policing. But I do think we are the knights in shining. We do ride up. We are the cavalry. Someone picks up a phone and says X is happening, and we break our necks to get there. I mean, then we put our necks on the line to try and stop someone doing something bad. We risk injury. The abuse we take is just off the radar. And you take all that, and then you put your uniform in the locker at the end of the night, and you go home with just another Joe on the train, and people haven't got a clue.
Do you think it's harder now to be a copper because of all the social media and everybody with mobile phones?
Possibly, yeah.
Because one slight manoeuvre wrong, one slight hand, one slight word that you say out of school.
Oh, completely. But context. I love how everyone seems to be a TV director now with their TikTok. I personally hate, I'm honest with you now, but social media, it just drives me insane because everyone's got their phone out. Everyone, a society where your first reaction when you see a police officer fighting in the street, both rolling around on the ground, is get your phone out and film it. I beggars belief. When I joined the police, if you saw an officer rolling around, people would come and assist. People would go, "Are you all right, officer?" There would always be somebody. A van had stopped. Someone, would say, "Are you all right?" Yeah, they wouldn't. What else? Who wants to live in a society where I'd get that on TikTok, or I'll send it to all my mates. And I just despise these people.
Yeah, soft.
Put your phone away and get involved in life.
But that's what I'm saying. If someone was drowning, nobody would put their hand out to save the person. They want to film it instead.
Yeah, well, there was a famous thing where someone had a heart attack in it was a Scandinavian country in a restaurant, and the police turned up and they were doing CPR on this guy in the restaurant, and people were outside and they were filming it, and the copper went bonkers, and I'm like, I'm with you. Who films someone dying? Yeah, haven't you got relatives?
Everything's views and clicks now.
Yeah, and it's sick, and I don't want to be a part of a society like that. I mean, I know I've got to have a mobile phone, but I hate it. I'm not on TikTok. I wouldn't go. I'm on Instagram. I'm only on Instagram because I got some advice of a good way to promote my book. And the book was never about me. It's not like, hey, I was a great cop. It's about the great people who I work with, who would never get a pat on the back. Who will go to and they know they are, the first ever area car at Notting Hill, Lee, Abs, what a cop, Scott, unbelievable cop, Magic, Undercover, Jules. I could go on for hours rolling off the names of cops who would literally come to work every day and put their neck on the line and not hesitate. And then they'd be in the pub afterwards, after unbelievable dramas, having a beer and laughing and just bring it on tomorrow, And that is that's when the job is the best job in the world.
Have you ever had any near-death experiences yourself? Were you shot many times?
No, I've never been shot or stabbed. I've had people pull guns on me. I've had people pull knives. A lot of knives pulled on me over the years. But I've been very lucky. I'm a lucky man. I have my wits about me. Surrounded by cool people, and like I say, I've had some very hairy moments, right? But I live to tell the tale. Some officers don't. And so I'm very lucky, and just luck. Some of it is just luck. It really is just luck. You can be the most switched on cop in the world, but you get out of the car at the wrong time, you turn up at the wrong front door, and life can get very, very difficult for you.
What was it like shooting someone?
It's a strange thing doing it. You train and train and train, and like I say, I trained 18 odd years in the department. I done and seen most of everything. Pulling the trigger, I had a gun pointed at me. I had an honest held belief I was going to be killed. I'm certainly killed my colleague, my mate standing beside me, and so I discharged my firearm. I did it to save my life and to save my colleague's life. But going back to my point, my training kicked in literally in a split second, in a blink. It happens that fast. But from discharging my firearm, I think, and I've said this to a number of people, well, I think it's 6 or 8 seconds, we had moved forward down the corridor, kicked the gun out of his hand, we're kneeling down and cutting his clothing off and plugging the gunshot wound, saving his life. And that's the duty That's the duty, to preserve life. So 1 minute he's pointing a gun at me. In a split second, I'm down there with unbelievable people. And that day, they know they are. They were unbelievable cops, right? Doing their job in the mix. You know, we'd been there like 7 hours. It was an unbelievably hot day, physically draining, you know, at this siege. You know, so many things going through your mind. And suddenly it's bang. I've discharged my firearm. I've done the thing I've trained for 18 years or whatever it was then. You know, and then you're there and you're in it. And I remember like just looking around at the faces. And I'm like, God, I'm lucky. So yeah, doing it wasn't that daunting. It was just because it's just I trained to do it. I'd chosen to be in that job, and it was an obvious. It doesn't happen to everyone. Most officers never pull the trigger, thank God. But it just happened to me. I was there on the day, and it fell to me. But I felt no guilt. I felt I was professional. I felt I'd done my duty. I was lucky to be surrounded by great people. Yeah, and it was, for me, it was a job. I'd done my job.
Yeah, I love that. Like I say, when I interviewed Peter, he's getting a task to do and he's following orders.
Yeah.
You've got your job to do. No regrets, fuck all, because I think when you start overthinking it and start over-processing it and over-analysing it, I don't think it's healthy. I think it's a case of, this is my job, this is what I'm paid to do, this is what I'm trained to do.
Yeah.
It is what it fucking is. I think that's what keeps people in good stead. Same as when I interviewed Peter. Just an old man sitting in his old folks' home. This is what I'd done. I got orders and I would have killed anybody. I'd done the best thing of my ability, what I was trained to do. And for me, I love that. I love that kind of attitude.
Well, I think that, you know, when you join the police, or that, you know, you're signing on, and not to shoot some, of course you're not, but you're signing on to face whatever comes your way. And, you know, I chose to join Trojan. No one made me. I chose to stay for 18 years. No one made me. I chose, you know, whatever reason, I was like on the top of that staircase there with my mates, and events unfolded and I did my job.
Did you make it short?
No. So we came out of it completely unharmed. The gentleman survived, and everyone did their job really well. And it's just one of those things you're thinking, and I know this, not another day at the office, of course it's not, because it's a very unique thing and the rigmarole around it. But it is, if you enter that world, well, don't be surprised if it happens. It's no, in the same way, if you get in a boxing ring, don't be surprised if someone punches you on the nose. It's, you know, you're in firearms, and SO19 is the busiest firearms unit. You know, London, armed criminality, you know, you are going to face very bad people. It's a fact. And some of those people really hate you. Some of them are ambiguous. I mean, I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate the bad guys. It was just, they were that side of the fence and we were the other, and we're going to clash. We're both on a trajectory that we're going to meet at some point. That's the deal. So no, I've got no hate, whatever. But some of them do really hate police, and so yeah, you have to be strong mentally, strong physically, and be prepared. And I was prepared. I never took my training. I never took any aspect of SO19 for granted. I took everything I did. I tried to be the absolute best I could be, so that anyone who followed, because I had great mentors, I had great people showing me how to do it. Anyone who followed me would go, no, we're going to do it this way. That's what Kev would have done. No, I'm no flipping, you know, I'm no one to talk. But I wanted the culture to be one of professionalism. Now, no matter what anyone said, my God, they're professional officers. You really can trust those people. They're going to turn up. And I used to love turning up. An inspector might be there, or it's sometimes a superintendent for some jobs. And the first thing I'd say would be like, what can we do to help? What can we do to fix your problem? Because no one else is coming. Right? If someone got a gun or whatever, we're going to fix it. We ain't going, we ain't leaving. We'll stay here till it's resolved, hopefully peacefully. You know, and I used to love that. And you know, we sort of doing some good, you know, keeping people safe, keeping the public safe, and with no expectation that anyone's going to pat us on the back at the end of it, you know, because I didn't join for medals or stuff like that. I joined because I just wanted the challenge.
See, when you become a dad, is it more pressure to do that job, to then come home safe?
I never thought of it like that.
Or do you try and cut off to be a dad
No,
I'm just born. So how does that work out?
I
for you?
never ever. My kids, when I went through the door at work, I don't think. If you think, oh, my kids are at home, or I don't view. I couldn't function like that. I came to work, and all of that stayed in a little, another part of the universe. I came to work, and I'd walk in. I'd always train before work. Always come in the gym, good workout, get my kit on, load the cars, go on parade, and that world was a separate universe. I never thought about my kit for that next. I try not to think about it unless they ran me up for food or money or dad, can we do this or whatever, but the bottom line was that world had to be kept away. I was on duty, and my other family, it may sound odd, but were the people on the car. So my duty was to protect them, and they protect me. And my kids and the people I love were outside. They were someone I'd go to at the end of the tour of duty, uniform comes off, hey, what have you been up to? And back in that world. And the two for me never sort of fed into the other. I made sure that when I was at work, 100% in the moment.
I always see the emotion on your face when you speak about your kids.
Oh yeah, I've got fantastic. Doesn't everyone love their kids?
My kids are fucking pests.
Well, I'm a divorced dad, so yeah, I've got great kids. Yes, raising kids is tough. I was a divorced dad. I wasn't there all the time, and obviously on shifts and stuff. But I'll ask them, do they know they're loved? 100%. Yeah, yeah.
And that's another thing with the job. That's the sacrifice for willing to die for other people, citizens who you don't even know, because you're giving a big part of your time away from your family, from your kids, to do another job, which is the right thing to do, to save other people and have other people to walk along the streets. Like I says earlier, I walk along the streets, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Touch wood, probably good tomorrow and it'll be fucking madness, but I don't see badness, and it's guys like yourself, and like I say, I'm proud of you and thank you for your service, and I don't think people get enough credit of what they do, what they achieve. Wars, I don't agree with wars, but I still respect my soldiers, I still respect the comrades who went into war, I still respect the SAS and what they do, because in their mind, they're doing the right thing, and that's okay, they're following orders. It's okay living in this world and you can sit back. It's okay for me, the civilian, just sitting back and going, yeah, I wouldn't do this and that, but who the fuck am I to say? I've never been in that environment, and you've got to respect these people who are willing to risk their life, take time away from their family while their own mental health slips, to help protect civilians, help protect our country, help protect the United Kingdom. It's one of the strongest nations in the world, if not the strongest. I think it's just a bit weak now. I think it will get back to where it belongs, because the power of the people here is so much stronger than the people in power, and I always say that stuff, but I just think people need to understand what goes into emergency services, what goes into these sort of people, and the mindset that they do and the sacrifices they have to do to keep these people safe. We should respect these sort of people and sort of individuals, men like yourself, who die for the badge or willing to kill for the badge. Like, it's next level. You see the Americans, how patriotic they are to their servicemen. They'll see the coppers, or they'll see soldiers, they'll pay for their lunch.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't do that here. It's a totally different ball game.
No, but you know what? The way Britain ticks over, this is a great country and full of wonderful people, right? And you join the police. No one forces you to join. You join, for the roller coaster that it is. I say I don't want anyone to buy me a coffee. I don't need a pat on the back. I would have done it if I'd won the lottery. I'd probably done it for free, because it's someone once said it's a front row ticket to the greatest show on earth. It's you go to work and you experience the most unbelievable things. And they used to call it the job. Maybe people don't call it. It was the job, because there was nothing like it. It completely took over your life. It did me. Made me grow as a human being. Met the best people I've ever met. Made me a better dad. Made me a better husband. Yeah, I'm a lucky man.
Did you ever get any prank calls?
Cool. Yeah.
Where somebody's not had a gun? Because I've seen men where they walk about with a bag and somebody's phone down and says they've had a shotgun.
Yeah, well, do you know what? You get all sorts. So into lighten the mood. Like, so I remember we got a call one night to Bermondsey, and it's in some arches under the railway line. They said it's a guy, high-powered car in the arch. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And there's a guy with a gun in the archway now. And we're like, all right, what's going on here? Gun buy, something like that. So we screech down there, turn off the lights, all sneaky, and we make a day into the arches. And when we get there, it's a photo shoot for James Bond has just come out, and they've got an Aston Martin guy dressed as James Bond, sort of some model with a gun, and they're doing the photo shoot. And I remember the public driving past had just seen this guy. You think they might have mentioned he was in a tuxedo or with a big bow tie, right? So we all walked up and we had quite a laugh. He's like, he almost had a heart attack when he sees a load of armed officers coming towards him, this model. But yeah, it was you know, it's the sublime to the ridiculous. You know, do you remember duck tours? The yellow, there was these yellow these yellow vehicles that used to go up and down the Thames, and they're marine things, and they were very popular in our duck tours. And we got a call one day that someone on a duck tour was pointing a gun at the driver. And we're like, oh my God, what's going on there? You know, someone's going to kill the driver of this vehicle. Anyway, we waited for it to come off the Thames, and we turned up, and it was a show for the tourists. And it was full of Japanese. The Japanese had paid a fortune to go on this tour, and someone pulled a gun out, and it was some show. And I remember I looked up, and there's all these Japanese looking down, and I instinctively sort of bowed and went, "Arigato!" And all these Japanese are clapping, and everyone's saying, "What is going on here?" And we're all standing there with guns. And it was just like one of those bizarre moments, never be repeated. But yeah, you go to work, and yeah, it's not all death and you know, you're driving around with some of the funniest people I've ever worked with in my life. Who just could tell a story or just do the funniest, quirky things. And then you go to calls. Some are great, some are terrible, and you just play it. You just play it all up. Yeah.
What's the worst thing about being in that job? What's the worst thing about being a police officer?
Suppose you're probably asking the wrong person.
Because you fucking love it, don't
you? Because
can you see anything wrong with the police?
Yeah, of course there's things wrong with the police. Of course, I think that they're not trained properly. I think that the training isn't good enough. I think that. So if anyone's watching this, who's a copper, especially a young copper, they've introduced a degree program. So they're not only are they on the street learning their job, young probationers, they've got to do all this paperwork like for a degree course. Absolute waste of time. Why does a police officer need this bolt-on degree that just takes up hours of paperwork? It's all been run by civilian organisations who are probably screwing the police for God knows how much money to run these pointless courses that have nothing to do with making them a better copper. That copper needs to be at work. When he's not at work, he needs to be home recovering, having time with his family, not writing stupid essays on God knows what. I'd get rid of that. I think the training, they introduced training packages where it's all done on a system called NCALT, where you just, you know, something's important, you're going to get a training package. Well, you've got calls to answer. And you see, I used to sit there, and if you're watching this, you know it's true. And I would just sit there, I'd be chatting to my mates, just doing that on the computer. And it'd be slides. I never read them. And to this day, I don't even know what half the NCALT packages were for. If you want to train police officers, then stop sending them rubbish computer programs. Get them in a room with an instructor, engage with them one-to-one as a group, and teach them whatever they need to be taught, new legislation or a new policy or whatever. Don't expect busy police officers who've got a million things to do to sit in front of a computer, tapping a button, seriously. I think in their initial training, the fitness test is a joke, level 5 something on the bleep test. Bring back a proper fitness test. So the people who want to join have to rise to the occasion. Then we start getting people who really want to be cops because they're out running, they're hitting the weights, they're doing jiu-jitsu, whatever they're going to do. So they're getting physically fit. So when they turn up, we're thinking, well, we've got some specimens here, people who want to do the job. You know, a bleep test that, you know, I could probably hop it. I'm 61 years of age now, and it's 5 something. That's a joke. And then you look at the fitness tests for the New Zealand police, America. You know, they are practical fitness tests involving chasing suspects, climbing over walls, carrying kit, things you might actually do. What does a bleep test prove? You know, and that's what I would do. I would, you know, the Met pays money for leadership programs, really. You know, what a waste of money. Do you really think putting busy sergeants on bar in a room and having somebody at the front going, leadership? Well, what's leadership? Do me a favour, you know. Let's promote real leaders. Let's find out, you know, who the people. You know, if you're a leader, you're not scared to get your hands dirty. For me, and I've done a lot of leadership. The number one thing was you had to have credibility. You have to walk in a room and people know you're the real deal. they know that also that you'll share the risk. That you are quite happy to share the risk. You're not sitting in a pod somewhere sending people out to do stuff because you'll then immediately go, I wasn't sure. You've got to share the risks. There's loads of stuff you could change about policing. Support.
You see those Spanish coppers and Polish
Yeah.
and Russian, they're just all big units.
Yeah.
They look as if they're trained martial arts. You're not going to fuck with them.
Yeah.
They'll disrespect. If you see a couple of average coppers, not really confident, you'd be thinking, yeah, I've got one up here. You've got the confidence.
Yeah. Well, the great coppers come in all shapes and sizes. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and genders, male or female. I will not. But let's give them some tools to work with. Let's get, let's have an expectation they'll be fit, because it's good for you. You're going to survive better in the job if you're fit and healthy. And also support networks. If someone comes to you and says, and it takes some guts to go, your skipper, do you know what? I'm breaking it. I can't cope with the paperwork. I can't wear the workload. I've got, let's have some support. Let's go, right, we don't want to lose you. We don't want you, last warning, you got off and just be off. What can we do to help you? Instead of, no, there's another call to take. There's another this to take. What about that? Let's support our officers. And you know what? That's going to take money, and it's going to take commitment, and it's going to take vision. Let's stop thinking, about the next call. Let's have some vision. Let's recruit well, young, fit, healthy, motivated people. Let's train them really well for the real world. And then when they're out, let's make response officers like a response is tough. Maybe the toughest kind of policing. You are just rolling call to call. Let's make response policing like something that's really respected. Let's look after our response officers, because when something really bad happens, they're the first person that's going to turn up. So you want them to be engaging. You want them to be enthusiastic. You want them to be determined to fix the issue. You don't want to turn them up shattered, broken, dreading turning up with their next call. You got to look after your police. That's bottom line, isn't it? Because the box eventually will empty, because people will think, sod joining that. I'm going to bring home a couple of grand a month living in London, what's it say? It's 2-4, whatever it is, right? You're going to live in London and you've got kids. Can you afford a holiday? Can you afford to run a car? But, you might be at home raising the kids. I know that sounds a bit sexy. So whoever your partner is might be looking after the kids or whatever. But the bottom line is, let's value our cops. So let's look longer than, the next drama with a government. Let's support them. And that means emotionally, but also financially. Because let's be honest, having a bit more money in the bank makes everybody's life a little bit easier, doesn't it? Financial worries. How huge in your life have financial worries been at some time in your life? They're massive, aren't they? You can't sleep at night when you have financial worries. And I just think there's so much could be done to support the police.
Everybody knows how much I love my dogs. I know you've got dogs. Yeah. What's the protocol? Because I've seen the video, and I'm not there. I'm not in that job. But the guy at the canal and had the 2XL bullies, man, the coppers have done both of them. Like, it broke my heart, but I don't understand the process of when should you do it, if their life's in danger, if they're threatened. Like, what is the protocol?
Well, I haven't seen it. Basically, it's if an animal, it's not just, it could be a horse, it could be if there's an animal that's in such pain, it's really suffering, it might be called to put it out of its misery. So a dog, I've had a friend of mine shot a horse once, had been burnt. You're trying to save that animal from further harm, from further pain. So you're trying to do it humanely. There are dogs, unfortunately. Some elements of society use a dog as a weapon or a device to sort of control other people. And so that dog might come in then contact with police. Well, do you really want to be ripped to pieces by some XL bully? You don't. Or do you want one of your colleagues to be ripped to pieces and have their career ended? So I haven't seen it, but there will be times where you have to shoot a dog. And I love dogs. And that's another thing. I can't think of anyone I worked with who didn't love dogs. But there might be a time where you're called upon to do it. And it's not pretty, it's brutal. And no one enjoys doing it, but it's a necessary evil. And no one wants to see an animal suffer, do they?
No.
But like everything, don't blame the police destroying an animal. It's called destruction, destroy an animal, but don't blame the police. Blame the idiot who bought that dog and then takes it on the street and can't control it. It's like everything. Don't blame. The police get blamed for so much, but ultimately, if you go out carrying a gun, a knife, with intent on doing some criminal activity, well, you're going to get stopped by police at some point, and things are going to get messy, right? Don't blame the police. Blame the people who are going on the street doing it. And if you have a dog and it's out of control and it's a threat to society, to the public, imagine if a bit of child. I mean, kids do. You see it all. 3 or 4 times a year, you hear about a kid being they've got a dog, and then the dog turns on the little kid, kills them. Well, these things happen, and they're terrible. So, if we get called to something like that, then those officers have every right. And I'll bet you any money they didn't want to do it.
So see if the armed response come through someone's door, what's the best thing to do if someone has a dog? Is it got to be in a cage? Or because a lot of people don't want their dogs involved.
No.
But if the dog's going to try and protect their owner, listen, it's understandable that it gets shot, but what would be the best protocol for somebody to do that?
I'm going to give you the best tip, and then whether you've got a dog or not, right? And this is real, comply, right? First of all, go to the dog situation. If you've got a dog and SO19 at your front door, or there's an incident, secure the dog. So talk to the officers, because we're very good communicators. So I've got a dog in here, and it's a whatever dog it is. It might be a Labrador, who knows, right? But I'm going to lock him in the kitchen or in the bathroom. I'm going to lock him in the bathroom. He's safe, he's secure, and then come out with your hands in you and say, like, officers, I do have a dog. It's locked in that room, and then we'll deal with it. And that might mean getting a dog handler in later who can put a noose around it, get it somewhere safely, because we've still got to clear that room, so we can't just leave it. But these are problems. There are insurmountable problems. We'll fix it. But so, just be reasonable. But if you stand there holding your dog by the collar going, yeah, really? Well, there's a very good chance that dog might have to be shot, because no officer is getting ripped apart, by something like that. But ultimately, and this goes to just all police, just comply. If a police officer stands still, stand still. Show me your hands, show him your hands. And that's it. I can bet you 99.9% of the time, you'll come away unharmed. You might get arrested for whatever the offence is, but just comply. That's all you got to do. On a firearms call, we get to a car, bloke's in the car, show me your hands, boom, right, turn the engine off, or doors opened, engine's off, seatbelt's off, it's extracted. Just comply. You will not be harmed. But when you start fucking around, when you start reaching for something, what do you mean that officer's going to think? If the information on it, you're in that car and you've got a gun, and you might have discharged that gun earlier, the officer's covering you, and you say, show me your hands, and you don't. Well, now you're thinking, what's going on here? And next thing, he bends forward. Is he going for the gun? Don't be surprised if something bad happens to you. Just comply. And you won't be injured. And even if you've got a gun in the car, better you're still alive and you get nicked with a gun in the car than you get shot. Surely, comply. And 99, I've done hundreds and hundreds of stops, foot strikes, whatever, vehicle options, and you dominate them, and they comply, they get extracted, they get nicked, and life goes on. But if you're watching this and you are some, hoodlum, I suggest just do what you're told. Don't just comply. Just listen to the police officers and do exactly what they're telling you. Be inside an address. Don't be a smart ass. Don't do anything clever. And you walk away in one piece.
Do you think it's hard now because of social media where people are saying, I'm not giving you my name, or putting up their window and saying, get me your office, get me your sergeant or whoever?
Yeah, they're getting all this nonsense from America. I need to see a duty sergeant. I can't even watch it. To be honest with you, I can't even watch that stuff because my blood will boil and my Marshall Zan shit will disappear, and my poor wife will listen to me screaming abuse. So I don't watch stuff. I have huge respect for anyone who's got the guts to do it, be it the military, nursing, doctor, teacher, there's certain professions where people, there are certain professions that keep society rolling forward. And we're so lucky to have our doctors and nurses, our teachers, and the police and the military. And we're it. We make sure that everyone can go to bed at night, sleep tight, their kids are safe, they're getting a good education. If they're sick, they're good. These are the fundamentals. These are the bedrock of keeping society. And that's why I see policing for what it is. It's a great job. It's a noble, and the guys I work with laugh at that. But maybe they're not so much the ones retired now. They look back on their careers and they're like, do you know what? I did do some good. I did make a difference. And I reckon that's pretty cool.
What's the best thing about being a copper?
For me, since I've retired, thinking I did some good stuff. I definitely saved a few lives along the way. Might have had a good impact on a few people, made a good influence on a few cops along the way. I'd like to think if I didn't, and I'm an idiot. But when I was in it, it was the mates. I couldn't wait to get out of bed in the morning to get to work to see my mates, and because they're that good.
How hard was it for you to retire? You're like a fucking boxer who's in his 50s who wants to go back for one more fight. That must have been a tough decision for you. I've never met someone who loves their job as much as you.
Well, yeah, because it was a huge part of my life. The leaving was huge for me. I was in tears my last day. But they all knew because I cry really easy because I'm bonkers. But yeah, it was hard leaving. And that's why I went abroad, because I just thought, I can't stay in London and see ARVs everywhere in my body. It would kill me. So I went to France and started a new life. And it's been brilliant for me. It's been a whole new adventure. And I don't see them on the news. I don't watch the news. I don't see my mates doing stuff, or the ARVs, SO19. We're all police officers. Yeah, I don't know if this is coming to an end, but I was just like, I'd do it all again. I would do it all again. And I know policing's going through tough times, and there's huge pressures on coppers. But you know what? It's still a great job, and it's something you need to be proud of. That's what I think, anyway.
For anybody watching, Kev, that's maybe in a life of struggle right now, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, it's easy for me to say, isn't it? And say something crass or something, but I mean, like, it's cliches. Just like tomorrow's a new day. Just stay with it. Find something that keeps you strong. Be it your kids, be it your mates, so your pet. Something that makes you get up in the morning, get out of bed, and think, you know what? It's a new day. A new day means there's new opportunity. That might be the day you meet the love of your life. It might be the day you've whatever. Just keep going. Try. That's what I say.
Last question. What's your plans for the future, brother?
Well, that's a good one. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I keep an open mind. I'm very lucky. I'm surrounded by wonderful people. Got a great wife, great kids. I've got fantastic stepkids. I'm just surrounded by really good people. And I just don't want to just keep on, just trying to do some good stuff. Try and make people laugh a bit, maybe smile. That'd be nice.
How are you feeling now?
Yeah, it's been a really nice chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Same, brother. Listen, it's been a very deep conversation. Again, thank you for your service. I see the emotion in your face. You're a good man. You've done everything for the right cause, and like I say, that takes massive courage. So I respect that. Kev, I wish you nothing but the best for the future, brother. And anything I can ever help with, I'm on a phone call away, bro.
That's really kind of you. Thank you very much. Cheers.